And I wanted to thank you all for being here. This presentation is being recorded, so it'll be available for you to review after and to share with your friends and family so they can also enjoy the words of wisdom that Roger is going to share with us today. So with no further ado, I will just let him come up. Right.
How is everyone? Yeah, I was like, well, maybe today we should just cancel this. I'll come back in October when it's raining.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, you know, I waited all week to get this picture. Today there's no clouds over there. So this has been really great. I got a little, this be recorded, got it. Okay, I had a little thing on my screen there. So, welcome to this assessment. I'm going to go through this. If you see any photos that you want to take of any screens, feel free. We are going to provide this whole presentation to Lori. And for some reason, my clicker does not want to work now. That is odd. Wow. Okay, so let's, this is what happens when you're running Zoom at the same time you're trying to do a presentation. There we go. So if you want to see anything, go ahead and take a picture of it. But this whole thing has been an assessment. We have been secret shopping Sitka since Sunday morning. As a matter of fact, we came here from Anchorage. We assessed Anchorage in January, and then 10 days ago we were there for about 10 days assessing Anchorage. Which, and by the way, when we were doing Anchorage, Anchorage is about the size of the state of Connecticut. It's a huge area. So this week, we have been here since Sunday morning, and there was no interviews, no heads up. We didn't say, Lori, what do we need to do? Where do we need to stay? We came just like any other visitor. So we didn't want any heads up. So there's no input on things to do, so everything you're going to see is from us doing this. And by the way, we have done about 2,200 assessments in 45 states, all across Canada, every province, Western Europe, Scandinavia, down in Africa, you name it. So when we come in and do an assessment, our whole thing is we look at the marketing. How good was it? Was it good enough to close the sale? Could we find information easily about Sitka? And how did you stack up against Ketchikan and the other Juneau, other areas of Southeast Alaska? But what I'm really going to concentrate today is what we saw when we got here. So this is the on-site assessment. Signage, gateways, getting around. And by the way, everywhere we went, they go, which ship are you on? And after a while, it's like, not on a ship! And so we rented a car. Pretty expensive in Sitka, like $200 a day. But our overall appeal, all of these things we'd see from somebody other than somebody being herded around in buses or true buses and from the cruise ships. So we looked at all these different things. We even checked out the customer service, you name it. Now, when we do assessments, it's not just about tourism. We look at Sitka as this is a place we want to live, retire, raise a family. Is it a place we would want to come and start a business or move a business or just work here? And how about visiting Sitka? And we learned right along that I feel bad for cruise ship customers because they have no idea what Sitka is about. We have been here since Sunday. Today is Friday, and we still haven't seen everything. So how people can judge Sitka on that 6 hours is great, but it's not even close to what you really have to offer. And so the entire focus of this whole thing is what else could be done locally to make Sitka an even better, stronger, more desirable destination. There's no looking back. So we're not saying, well, you should have, there's none of that. This is all saying, here's Sitka from a first-time visitor. And this has been a bucket list destination for us for years. So Lori called and said, we want you to come and assess Sitka. We were like, yes, we'll be there. And that is what this is about. So here is our Sitka experience, and along the way, I'll provide some things that you can do to make it even better. First thing is, we were in Anchorage last week, so we flew Saturday evening, we flew to Juneau, did the milk run, Juneau to Sitka. We arrived at about 1 a.m. in Sitka. And first thing is, almost everybody had baggage, and we loved it at your airport because you have that TV screen right there that has little 1-minute teasers of kayaking, of wildlife viewing, of fishing, and they all say visit Sitka, so they tell you how to find the website, and they give you all these teasers on what there is to see and do. And it was amazing because virtually everybody there at the airport was watching that video. So I thought, way to go, thumbs up. Really good thumbs up. And then, of course, Sunday morning, we went to sleep, and we came in. We didn't even get to see any views or anything until the next morning. We did stay at Totem Square Hotel the first night, and then the next day, we moved over to the Aspen Suites. So that is where we've been staying. So we rented a car, we stayed at Aspen Suites. Now, you might wonder, well, why did you stay at Aspen Suites? Why did you stay at the Totem? You know, and part of the reason is your hotels were pretty much full. It was hard to even get a room. And this is several months ago. But what we do what most visitors do, we go to TripAdvisor and sit there and look for hotels. And for us, we needed a desk in the room. The Totem didn't have a desk in the room because we have our computers, the projector, we have scanners, we have everything there because we had to put together this presentation. And so, once we got up on Sunday morning, we did pack up, and before we even went over to Aspen Suites, we decided, let's go check it out. Now, the very first one I'm going to give you is this. If you're at the Aspen Suites, good luck getting to downtown without getting killed. And by the way, you're going to see a lot of these little numbers up there. They're just suggestions. There is no recommendations here. I think it'd be presumptuous for coming to Sitka and saying you should do this and this because we never talked to you first. So these are suggestions that you may say, well, let's turn that into a recommendation. But Sitka is a walkable town. And from almost all your hotels, you can easily walk all over downtown. But if you come out of this hotel and try to get across the street, there's no crosswalks unless you walk all the way down to the main intersection. And so we saw people jaywalking here. We saw a lady whose husband was like this, and she was sitting there, come on, come on, come on, come on. I was like ready to run out there and stop traffic because there is a corner there. And so people don't have a site visit, but you really need to get a crosswalk to make it easier because the last thing people want is to walk out of their hotel room and start panicking over how to get across the street. And so that was number one. But in our case, we just walked down that same side after that, and we did see the visitor center, and we love the fact that you do have 24/7 visitor information, meaning that if we're not here when the visitor center's open, we can still grab a Sitka guide, we can still grab a map of downtown, and they were right there. So that to us was a positive thing. And these are the two pieces we grabbed from there. And so right there, we did this. We grabbed the guide there. We did have the downtown map, which was very, very useful. Now, in the back of the visitor guide, there is actually a map of the island, but it's a trail map. I wish there was one for a road map. And here's why. Sitka is so geared to cruise traffic, and I would love to see you cater to people that are not on cruises. Number one, we're spending way more time here. Number two, we'll probably have a rental car or we're just walking around. But Sitka is absolutely worth spending a weekend. Absolutely. I'd love to see your marketing go that way. In that case, if we rent a car, we need to know, this does show your roads, but it's really a trail map. We'd like to see one of these that all shows the attractions on there. So that's something you could add. And remember, this is not about throwing anybody under the bus or saying you're doing something wrong. This is saying, what else could you do to make it better? And that would be one of those things. We also have the little hiking guide, which we think is excellent. It's a nice little piece. And it tells you pretty much the same trails, but this will tell you difficulty level, so you know whether that one's kid-friendly or whether it's, able to cater to people that are disabled. And it's got all kinds of great information. So that was really great. For us, we didn't get a chance to hike many of your trails because we're here to work during this week. And remember, we didn't run out of things to do even though we didn't get to hike the trails. We also got this little Sitka guide. Now this here is pretty much a list of your restaurants, your retail shops, but the nice thing is it'll tell you where you can find them in downtown. So the companion piece of all these were great. So we got up, we had those, and then we headed down to the Mean Queen for breakfast. And the first thing I kept thinking of, there's got to be a story here. Why would you call something the Mean Queen? We don't know what that story is, but it must be good. So we did head down there. We had breakfast, great customer service, and then we decided to head out. Now, because we rented a car, we didn't know where to go, what to do, so we just thought, well, let's do kind of this north, I don't know if that's the north part of Sitka. So what you see there, we decided, let's go head out and do that. Now, we don't know, as a matter of fact, when we got here, we didn't realize the airport was on a separate island than Sitka is on Baranof Island. And so this here, we weren't sure how far the roads went, where they went. And so we didn't drive on these roads until we got there. So we pretty much knew this is pretty much the end of the road. We wanted to go on just to see what was up there. But we also didn't want to end up in jail. But we stopped right there, but this is a beautiful area. And so we decided this is the Mosquito Cove area. You know, I gotta tell you though, but with a name like Mosquito Cove, it was like, do we even dare get out of the car? Because we've heard that there are seabirds and some birds that eat like a quarter pound of mosquitoes in an hour, and then somebody said, yeah, in Alaska that means 4 mosquitoes. And so, but we did check it out. We did see the U.S. Forest Service boards right here. You know, I think it would be great if there was a brochure holder for the hiking guide, because if we go on these trails, if we have the All Trails app, we're good. Without the All Trails app, it would be really nice if we could actually take that hiking guide with us that shows the difficulty levels and everything. So we thought if there was a way to mount on this one, or even, you know, get these little brochure holders, that was like $28. So we thought, man, if you had a few of those, we'd like to see your information be more than just at the visitor center. And so we thought if you had something like that on one of those posts, maybe right there, since it already looks like it's made for something to mount there, would be fantastic. So we can pick up a hiking guide once we're there, because most of this other information are about rules, regulations, those types of things. And we think these could even be a little bit condensed a little bit. Because between, if I go back, between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, if we go more, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 22, 23, 24, 28, you know what? We're probably not going to read all 25 things. And so if they were condensed into the primary rules, I think it would be great. We also went over here. This is Mosquito Cove Trail right here, and we love this map right there. And the challenge is, unless you snap it with your phone, or unless you have All Trails, you know, you can't take that with you. But it's a really good map because it'll tell you what to expect. It gives you a little teaser of why you should hike it, so that was really great. And it's just a beautiful area. I mean, just everywhere we went was. And this is a different set right here. So this is over another set of trails. And even right here, once again, we have so many things. It would be good if there was, here's your rules, or here's just to kind of combine some of these, because somebody's probably not going to read them. I mean, I think good dogs must be leashed, and it gives you some information. No wood pallets, you know. But I think you could do that and condense a little bit. But there are these 2 boxes, and they're both empty. There's nothing in them. And I don't know if it used to be a fee area, now it's not a fee area. We didn't know, but we thought, man, this would be a great place to put one of those trail guides. If you're not going to use those, can we put some information there? And that would be very helpful for people. Because when we're hiking, we really want to take maps with us. And so, you know, but here we got contact the host for access and price. We never found a host anywhere. So I'm not sure if there are hosts or where we would find a host, but we couldn't find it. Forms of payment. We couldn't find, we saw that these might be, some places are fee areas, some places are not, but there was no envelopes to put any fee in, and so it was a little bit confusing. Now, we didn't hike the trail because we were busy trying to find them all, but those are some suggestions you might do there. And we love seeing people out fishing. I mean, this is almost like combat fishing where they're shoulder to shoulder. And, but it was great watching them fish out there, and boy, the fish are running. So we started heading up roads, not really knowing what we were going to find, and we go by waterfall after waterfall, and we did end up at the shooting range. And we could hear it from a distance, and I thought, well, that'd be cool if there's somebody that likes hunting and stuff. I don't know if there's a place that gives you lessons or shooting, but we did find that. It looked like it was well managed, well cared for, and I went, cool, that might be I don't know if that's a visitor experience or not, but there were locals using it for sure. On our way around, we did find, I think this is the forest, is it Muskeg Trail? Is that what this, do you know? Is that area? And there was a guy standing there and said last bear sighting was August 3rd. We were there on like August 8th, and the guy standing there was a guy right there. He said he was on that bridge, and he looked over, and there was a bear coming right at him across the bridge. And of course, they kind of stared at each other, and then he backed out of the way, and the bear turned around and left. But he goes, I don't know how to change the bear sighting date, or is there a phone call you could make? We didn't know. It just said last bear sighting, August 3rd. And so he said, you'll find those everywhere, and none of them are accurate. So the bears are seen more often than not. We were like, man, I wish we could have been there for that. And we did go to the old Sitka State Historic Site, which we thought was fabulous. It really tells a good part of the story. And this is on Monday. It was a little wet. And one thing we learned, and this is something I think you should promote because I heard it in Anchorage, and I think it would really apply to you. And I saw it on the news where they said there is no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. And we had our raincoats, so we were perfectly fine. And so we were there, and it was pretty wet that day, but it had great views. I mean, it tells you the history. I thought it was excellent. We come down the road a little bit, and we do see this. It has a fee station, but the fee station box is right in the middle there. It was almost rusted shut. You could barely lift the lid on it. And there's no envelope. So I was a little confused over what you pay for, what you don't pay for. So these can be a little clearer, and I think that's if you park there or use the docks. We're real sure on it, but it's a nice, pretty site. And this is where we found the ferry terminal. We always wondered, there must be a ferry terminal somewhere, and we did find the ferry terminal here. We looked at the schedule where they go, to Bellingham and to north-south. I thought that was really well done. But this is another great opportunity to add 24/7 visitor information. Our whole thing, even if you're on a cruise ship, wouldn't it be great if we could get people on a cruise ship say, we got to go back to Sitka on our own? Because when you spend money at hotels, you're eating more food at restaurants rather than on the cruise ships. I mean, the spending of regular tourists or cruise ships tourists is probably 3 or 4 times greater. And us that are not on cruise ships would be happy to come here in April, or even May before the first ones come, or in September. I mean, I bet your falls are gorgeous. And so we thought right here would be another great place. So here's the suggestion. This we saw in North Platte, Nebraska, that little mounted visitor thing. They had a local guy make these, and they're about $250 to $300, but the lid lifts up, and it's got like a state guide in there. So for you can have your Sitka guide, you can have the trail maps, you can have whatever you want in there. And I thought having those in several places around would be fantastic. We always want to get information in their hands so that once they come, they'll say, we got to come back. Because they'll look at things and go, wow, we didn't know Sitka had this or this or this or this. We did see this, as an RV park, but I got to tell you, we are RVers. Matter of fact, we were going to RV up to Anchorage, and we couldn't do it because the fuel prices in British Columbia were so astronomically high, and the Richardson Highway flooded and everything. But when we went to your RV parks, they're mainly permanent RVers. And so I didn't really know if that's really for transient RVs. I don't even know if RVing is really much of a visitor industry in Sitka. Probably pretty expensive to get them over here. And so then we went down to the cruise terminal, and this blew us away. I mean, this is an incredible facility. It is world class and very nice. We're really, really impressed with your cruise terminal. I mean, it's just beautiful. How old is it?
1 year.
1 year, okay. Built during COVID, and I'm glad because now we're, I think 2022, 2023 will probably be your busiest years on record. And part of that is because of pent-up demand. For 2 years, we were sequestered, we were isolated. And so you see big years. So I'm so glad that you have this because it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, we went there, we spent several hours there, photographed it, and it was nice because even though it was a little bit drizzly and stuff, it still had a lot of the area was covered. I think some of your shops are fantastic. The food, you name it. The Wheelhouse does a great job. You've got the jeweler there. Our favorite store was down below, was this one. And here's why. Owned and operated by an Alaskan family since 1967. When we travel, we want things that are authentic and unique to you, not things we can buy that are made in China or Indonesia. And so, shops like this are fantastic. And I know they have, but these whole Sitka fur, I mean, it was amazing. But a suggestion is I would make sure that any shop that's going to be there has at least 40 to 50% of their merchandise made in Alaska. We want things that are authentic to you, not things we can buy anywhere. Now, I know that people will buy cheap souvenirs, but I think most of the people want something that we buy that's authentic to you. And so I think it's really important not to sell your soul. So I was glad to see that we didn't have t-shirt shops everywhere. I mean, they have plenty of t-shirts in this shop, and that's fine. But overall, I would make sure that any merchant that's going to be catering to them is really selling made in Alaska good. Keep the money local. Keep the money here. And then while you're at it, even though when there's no information there, I think you still ought to have one of those visitor information kiosks there. Where somebody can grab a guide, somebody can grab a book. And even if they just grab the hiking guide, they're on a cruise ship, and they say, well, we're not going to be able to hike any of these. It's another reason, an incentive for them to come back on their own and spend more time in Sitka. So even though this wasn't staffed when we were there, I still think there should be visitor information there. And then, over time, I would love to see Sitka move its visitor guide, I always call it activities guide, to more of what they do in Anchorage. Now, Anchorage has a massive budget, of course, I mean, what is it, more than half the state's population lives there. But the thing that they do that I think would be really great that you could do in Sitka is top 6 reasons to love Sitka, so like they did in Anchorage. They did Anchorage by season. I'd love to see you do Sitka by season. That tells people that you are actually open year-round. The weather may not be always cooperative, but we spent some rainy. Anchorage had us go there in January and in the end of July, beginning of August. And we thought the winters were fantastic. I mean, it got down to 15. And by the way, our home base is Phoenix. When it gets below 70, we pull out the parkas. But even in Anchorage, we love the winter there. There was no crowds. We had the place kind of all to ourselves. We actually love. So doing something along this line down the road would be great. And they also do it by family travel. If you're coming here by family, in their case, glaciers for you, it might be wildlife viewing. Obviously, you would have the fishing. You would have their mountains. You have your mountains or your trail systems. And so this is what they do, but they do it by type of activity. And of course, one thing I love about Sitka, talking about the history of Alaska, it really starts here. It didn't start in Anchorage, it was here. And that's something we learned after we got here. But I just love the fact they do it by type. What is your favorite activity? It's going to be wildlife. It's going to be fishing. It's going to be hiking the trails. It's going to be shopping and dining. And then organize it that way, I think would be great. And then you can even do day tours. Because this is still Monday. We're still on one part of Sitka. And we've been there, and we haven't even hiked the trails, and we're running out of time. And we haven't even been on downtown. And I think they did this in Anchorage. It's Lynn and Angie. It was a $6 app. I thought, man, this would be really cool to have in Sitka. I almost emailed Lynn to say, hey, would you do one for Sitka? Because it's privately done. But when you're walking around in Anchorage, they'll say because it knows where you are by location, it says now you're in front of the cathedral. When you walk inside, here's what you can expect. And as you move around, the Lutheran Church or downtown or Totem Park or Totem Square, it would tell you that. So I thought those are some ideas for you. Now, when we're coming back, we also did see the golf club. Sorry, that's out of focus, but there's no information. Is this open for public play?
Yes. No.
It is, okay. Is it 9 holes or 18? 9 holes. Can you rent the carts? I see them there.
Yes.
And is there club rentals? Do they have food? See, there's no information. None. They have this huge reader board right there, and there's no information on it. So for a golf course, they'd say, come on, close the sale. If we're a visitor and we see this, add some signage. I mean, do they allow cross-country skiing on the course in the winter?
Yes.
They do, see? And so add some signage. I always call that even invite us back. If we're not going to golf while we're there right then, invite us back. And there's zero information. Matter of fact, we couldn't even tell if it was really open when we're there on Monday. We see all the golf carts there, so we assume it is, but yet we're not even sure where the front door is. I think it might be around back here, but I'm not sure. So that's something they could do to make it even better. And I did see people coming here even as a visitor, renting some golf clubs and a bag of balls and a bucket of balls to go out and use the driving range, which was covered. I thought that was awesome. And then another great, so you can see all these things we're finding out in this one little area. So here we are at, I can't remember which area, is this Halloween Point?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and this was another area that we saw, and once again, they're just everywhere. Now, one thing that's really important I want to bring out. Before people travel somewhere, they use brochures 32% of the time. Because they're going by word of mouth, they're going by the internet, what they read online. But once people arrive, this is really important. Brochures and pre-materials are number one, even over the web. That's why I'm telling you, to have this information where they can get it would be fantastic. 81% of the time. Internet's number 2. And then markets that can encourage week-long stays and return trips. I mean, everywhere we went. And by the way, this picture, we took at McDonald's.
Yes.
I just went, after just half a day here, we already knew that Sitka deserved a week-long stay. We already knew it. And I just thought McDonald's, usually this would be like a 5-star restaurant would be with a view like that. But you know what? Good for them. And by the way, I was glad that McDonald's was not in the heart of your downtown. I think that's really, really important. I have nothing against McDonald's. We actually had a deal there. But I'm so glad it wasn't in your downtown. Matter of fact, we see many towns actually create zoning ordinances that the business downtown can only be local, no chains or franchises. And the reason is we want what's local to you. It would be a travesty if you had a McDonald's and a Dairy Queen and your Subway was all in the heart of downtown on Lincoln Street. So I was glad to see McDonald's where it was. They have fabulous views. I mean, talk about, I never thought of McDonald's as a romantic spot, but it really is. We also saw there Lakeside Center. I think it's really important for your businesses to identify. Now, granted, remember, we're not talking about cruise ship passengers that are in buses and vans. We're talking about people like us that we're in, the Aspen actually has kitchen, it's an extended stay. So we need to pick up a few things in grocery, but we don't know what this is. We saw one window that had a bunch of bikes inside, so we're not sure what this is. And there's no signs anywhere telling me what it is. And I assume, is it groceries and pharmacy and some of everything?
It's all of it.
It's all of the above. Okay, but we didn't know that. Even if they had, even on the red there, if they put groceries, pharmacy, bike rentals, hardware, whatever it is they sell, just do a list there. They do have a reader board and said something like something was on sale that was a grocery item. But once again, visitors make it really simple and clear. And then they say we don't care about visitors, we're here for the locals. And in that case, fine, no problem. And so we headed back in town for dinner. First thing we did is we went to Google and we looked at restaurants in Sitka. And number one, was right up there near the top. Actually, they bought their way to the top. It says ad up there. And we did have dinner at the Baby restaurant. By the way, we did not have a bad meal in Sitka. So the food was great. Baby was great. And this just made our day. She is a server there and she's wearing rubber boots. And so my whole comment there, only in Sitka are rubber boots worn as a fashion statement. I thought it was awesome. I just thought, how cool is that?
8 churches too. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. So it was just awesome. Just loved it. People were great. Service was great. And so that ended our Sunday. Now, did we miss anything going out that way? Probably. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. Because one thing I think Sitka needs is a wayfinding system. You've done a fantastic job in town with your pedestrian signage, but for vehicle, remember you're thinking cruise ship passengers, there are buses, they're not renting cars, but you know what? It's hard to get a rental car here. They're rented out. Everywhere we met, when it wasn't somebody on a cruise ship, it was somebody here for a 4-day fishing trip or a 3-day fishing trip. And they're looking around. So for us, we saw this, the Fort Rousseau Causeway State Historic Site, and then somehow you have to walk across the runway to get to it. We're still confused over that. And so you really need a vehicular wayfinding system. And here's what it will do for you. It creates a better visitor experience. And you're going to see that as I go through this. Some places where we had, like we drove by both the Raptor Center and the Fortress of the Bear twice because their signs are set way off. They're used to tour buses bringing people there. What about the rest of us that are here to spend more time and more money? And so directional signs will create a better visitor experience. And a lot of times we will learn what you have off of those signs that we might not otherwise even know you have. And then it will increase visitor spending. Studies have shown that wayfinding will increase visitor spending by 18 to 22%. And you know what? That's the benefit of tourism, is bringing more cash into Sitka so the city, the town can improve the quality of your life, more money for playgrounds and schools and those types of things. And it will keep visitors here longer because they go, wow, I didn't know they had that. We need to go discover that. So even people on a cruise ship might see your vehicular wayfinding, even on foot, and go, wow, it's too bad we don't have a car. We can go out there. We need to come back. It's incentive to be able to come back. And you can route people how you want around them. So these are typical wayfinding signs. That one here, that one is in Logan, Utah, but that might be a typical, or something like this. I think probably better suited to Sitka would be something more like this, that looks kind of woodsy, looks kind of foresty. I took that in Woodlands, Texas. But these are bigger letters, and they just never more than 5 items on the sign. And by the way, navigation systems are not a substitute for wayfinding signs. We use navigation, Google Maps, Apple Maps, ones that are built into the car. We use those to say, Siri, take us to the National Historic Site, places we know exist. We use navigation to take us to places we already know exist. Your signs will tell us about stuff we may not even know you have. One thing you have to understand is less than 5% of visitors ever go to visitor information centers. That's why I want you to put those kiosks out there. That's nationally. Here, if it was 50%, there's still the other 50%. And so that's what wayfinding will help you do. And so that is not a substitute. And even on your pedestrian signs, Disney does that. And we like that because that means here's where you can get more cash to spend while you're here. So identifying those are great. And then wayfinding is needed for all of these. So if we rent a car, we want to head out to the cruise terminal, or we want to go to any of these, the university, how to get to downtown if we're out of downtown. I mean, all of these things could be on your vehicular wayfinding. You've already done a good job for people on foot. But this would be really great. And you don't put all of these on one side. You put no more than 5 in, so you have them in different areas leading you to these places. But if we started to see all of these things on sign, we'd go, oh my gosh, look at all there is to do here in Sitka. And we do even have a video that we have the destination development .org, and it has videos, and there's one in there that talks all about wayfinding. So, and that video tells you what's included, the rules of wayfinding, and how to get wayfinding system designed. And every community that's done vehicular wayfinding has seen a greater return on investment than the cost of producing it. And right now, there is a ton of federal grants to do wayfinding. So I would urge you to do a vehicular wayfinding sign. And finally, if you had wayfinding, you would probably cut the divorce rate in half. Because us guys will never ask her for directions. So, and one thing I love about Sitka, times go out there trying to get lost, you'll always find your way back. You know, and that's one thing I really love about here. But like this is in Appleton, Wisconsin, see that sign up there on the left? That was like $750. It's got an aqueous coating on it so that graffiti won't stick on it, ice won't stick on it, stainless steel, hardware. It's mounted on an existing power pole. You know, and so on Monday morning, we decided let's head over to the island where the airport was. Because remember, we saw it in the middle of the night. And so we thought we'd head out over there. And we never did find the Rusu, however you pronounce it, causeway. But when we went over there, we did see the airport. And our first thing that really struck us is why does just about every building in Sitka have to be gray, brown, or beige? On a cloudy, gloomy day, you can't even tell the difference between the buildings and the sky. Come on, some color. You know, and it just doesn't need to look drab. I keep thinking if we could have Native American murals there, or anything, just to add some color, I think it would be fantastic. We did see these, we love these. I mean, the more you put of these around, I think the better. I think they're awesome. But even the hospital, we saw it once again. Why is everything have to be gray, brown, and beige? Why? You know, well, we love places like Nova Scotia, you know, because everything is yellows and purples and greens. It's colorful. We in fact, if you could just paint the panels there. Now, we're not talking about painting rainbows, but we're talking about doing murals or art or just a mix of colors, blues and greens and other things. But hospital looks like a good facility. The airport is a great facility. How many towns of 9,000 people have Boeing 737-800s, the big ones coming in? I mean, that's pretty cool. And it accommodates them. The people there are great. We also saw the high school, the university. We didn't realize how much stuff was over on this island. But once again, every building, at least this is a lighter gray color. And the high school looks great. You know, even the views from there, like, wow. And, you know, this is probably not a big visitor destination, but just to know that you have a high school there, that you've got the hospital there, looks like it's good, you've got the airport, I mean, all your facilities there look great. You know what? Why that's important? Because maybe someone will say, I want to live here. I want to start a business here. Or I want to come back and stay longer. All of those things. So we never did find that. Is this, can people actually get to this?
On boat.
It's on hold?
Boat or
Oh,
highway.
on boat. Because it shows like a road. It says it's a causeway.
Yeah, you used to be able to, but.
Used to be able, okay. I was wondering about that. I don't know how you do that across runways. And they thought, well, maybe there was a trail under there, but that would be good to know. So that might be another attraction to get there by kayak or boat. So that's good to know. So I'm glad I wish we could have seen it. And by the way, once again, we're adding to our list of reasons why we should stay longer. Because that would be really cool. And so, once we did that, once we did the island where the airport is, then we decided, okay, this time let's head the other way, kind of, let's see, would that be east, I think? Or, you know, the north is that way, so let's see, that would be, let's see, north, let's see, yeah. So we decided to head over to that part of the island. I mean, it's hard to be directionally orchestrated in Sitka. So we decided we're going to drive down there. And first of all, we came to Whale Park, which we think was beautiful. This is a great little park. We saw lots of families there, and they were climbing on the whales, but it's right there. We even saw a lady out on the trail who said that somebody had called, a local, she said somebody called and said there was a bear on the trail, so she came to see it. We never did see it, neither did she. But you know, we like seeing bears, you know. And we're glad that you do the bear aware programs and all of those. But once again, this is a great little park. So we start heading out, and even just the drive alone out this way is fabulous. It's incredible. And so we kept driving out there, and it was just beautiful. And we started going up these dirt roads. We saw something called Blue Lake or something, you know, and so we're driving up these dirt roads, and there's like waterfalls every couple hundred feet. And we finally get up here, and we saw the dam break muster area, and we're trying to figure out, let's see, so there must be a dam, and if it breaks, this is where you gather. Is that what that means? Okay. For people that are not used to this, it's like, okay, so there must be an area, we got a good, like a map there. But once again, there's some of the things have fallen off the board down there on the ground. This is starting to get overgrown, so we just think somebody should do a little more maintenance right here with these trails and stuff. So this is the Thimbleberry Lake and Heart Lake Trail, I think. Once again, we'd love to come back and actually hike these. But Blue Lake was absolutely stunning. Now, I mean, basically for the drive, waterfalls every couple hundred feet and everything. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful. And I understand it's your drinking water, so I'm not saying put this front and center on all your marketing. But this could be a great hidden gem. I mean, and look at how clear the water is. You can see clear down, there's a canoe there. You can see well down in there. It's just like, wow, this is so pristine. And this is just one lake. And we even saw where the spillway is. I was up there on the fence trying, where that spillway drops down. I thought, man, you need to have a viewing platform there because that is incredible how far that spillway drops. But once again, a very beautiful place. And even driving, going down to where the campgrounds are, I think it's like hiking, camping, over the river right there, Sawmill, I think that's Sawmill Creek, right? And so we did, there it is, stunning. I mean, just beautiful places. So I thought, here's what you could do. And I wish I would have brought one of these. This is, excuse me, Door County, Wisconsin. That's a little booklet that's about this big. So it's like 5 inches square. And a local person did this. It wasn't a tourism organization. He did 101 things to do, but I'd love to see you somebody do one that could be Sitka's hidden gems. These are the ones you don't want to broadcast to everybody, but for somebody who wants to come and really explore and get to know Sitka, we don't mind finding them. And for instance, I'll read this one. Excuse me. Our favorite Sunday morning starts with breakfast at the White Hole Inn on Main Street in Fish Creek. Splurge on a slice of their famous Door County Dairy Sour Cream Coffee Cake. So they take a much needed stroll down it and it tells you about it. So I could just see this book. These days, you can print this in full color for the same, but I can see a full color photograph there, and then you tell about the experience. And you might do 20 of those, 30 of them, 50 of them. Because we didn't even get to go see Thimbleberry Lake and all these other lakes that you have. You know, and so just so you know, the cost of printing is about $5 a book. You could wholesale them for about $10. You would retail them for about $15. Where you would sell them, which maybe the Chamber of Commerce could do it, be a fundraiser. Of course, the visitor center could do it. Even local retailers could sell it. It could be even available online. I think it would be fantastic. But I just think this is a small business opportunity for somebody. By the way, that book I showed you, he did that. It was a guy who was actually a contractor, but he had people come and visiting him up in the peninsula, the Door County Peninsula, which extends out from Green Bay. And he sold 40,000 books. And so, I mean, and by the way, now they print them on demand. So you say, well, I only need 100 right now. And so there's a great, I just think it'd be a great thing to have. There it is, cruise ships, there's terminal retail. And by the way, in Wisconsin, state parks did an interesting thing. They actually would survey people that bought the book to see if it brought them back. And 94% came back because they couldn't get through. In their case, 101. But for you, it might be 20, 30, 40, 50 hidden gems that you don't want to just broadcast to everybody. And then while we're out there, I mean, Harry Cove, Silver Bay were just absolutely spectacular. On our way back, we come around a corner, all these people are walking across the street, and I'm going, what the heck is this? Totally missed it driving out there. The only reason we knew something was there is because there was all these people crossing the street. And so we figured, we gotta see what that is. And then we could see back there where the gate is, that it was Fortress of the Bear. But once again, wayfinding signs would tell us Fortress of the Bear parking 1/2 mile to the right or whatever it is. But we did see it, but really, that's easy to miss. So, since we did see the people there, we did stop there, we did go in, and of course it was very crowded. And the first guy I saw was this, he's doing a perfect pose. I'm going, okay, there's your profile pose. Okay, come on. Look at me, come on, guy, come on, that's a great pose, come on. And he did, fine. But I think they do a good job there. They have lots of good history about the bears and how to react when you're around them. But I gotta tell you, we just assessed West Yellowstone, Montana, right at the entrance to Yellowstone National Park. And they also have the Bear and Wolf Discovery Center. And I thought, man, if somebody could do a chainsaw carving or something like that right there at the Fortress of the Bear, I know they're a nonprofit, but if there was ever funds to do that, you would really get people's attention. And in West Yellowstone, there was never a minute when people weren't doing selfies there. So something like that out by the road would be absolutely fantastic to get our attention. The other thing I think would be really good is the pins that they're in. It's like shooting fish in a fishbowl. You know what I mean? They're round. And they weren't, I wish they were had more lumber and things there. But what they did in West Yellowstone, I thought was really cool. I don't know that they could do it in Fortress of the Bear. But in West Yellowstone, their bear discovery, number one, it looks like this. It's probably a little bigger than Fortress of the Bear. But what they do is they have a place where the bears can go and be fenced in, whereas here I'm not sure they do that. But once they do that, they will fence them in, and then they come out and they hide the food under all the rocks and the logs to get the bears to forage. And it is really cool. You'll see the staff out there lifting up boulders with pry bars and then putting food under there and then lowering them back down. And then they would let the bears out, and the bears are actually moving logs and rocks, and you actually see them almost like in a natural habitat foraging, and it was really cool. So if they could do that, it'd be great. Overall, they treat the guests well. The staff is easy to talk to and will answer questions. So that was good. We're glad we got to see Fortress of the Bear. And then as we came back into town, we saw the Sitka National Historic Park. Our big challenge there is when we drove up. Remember, we have a car. That one space when I took the picture filled up as soon as I took the picture. We had no place to park. Because this parking lot, everything says reserved. Even the single parking spaces back there say reserved. So if you have a car, it'd be nice if there was a small sign that says, by the way, we have overflow parking somewhere. Now, for most people, including us, normally, because we were out driving around, we were driving there, normally we would just walk. I mean, it's just a couple of minutes from where we were staying. But it would be nice to have some overflow parking as you start to market to people that are coming here outside of cruise ships and are here for like a week. This is a beautiful site. I mean, and I'll share more with you in just a second here. But we saw this little totem exhibit. There's people kind of squeezing back behind there, and there's like a totem pole under the cover there. But we're not really too sure what it's about. There was no real context to it. But a highlight was walking behind the building and going right here. And I forgot to get his name.
Tommy Joseph.
What is it, Joseph?
Tommy Joseph.
Tommy Joseph. Tommy Joseph. And we were standing there in a line, and people ask questions, how long does it take to complete one of these? And they're asking a zillion questions. And I let him, he was very good about answering questions and everything. And then once the crowd started to die down, like after 4 o'clock, you know, when people were heading back to the cruise ship, I came back and I talked to him for like 20 minutes. And my first question is, can you ever get any work done when the tourists and people, he goes, no. He has a couple of apprentices. He said there's only like 10 wood carvers and left. I mean, there's not very many wood carvers that do these. They're in the midst of doing 10 of these for Juno. And he talked about his favorite hikes. Even the hike right here, he said, is sacred. And we felt that. But he talked about going over to the other islands. He found a bunker from World War II that was totally overgrown. He thought it was so cool. And just a really, really great guy. And so I was able to ask him some personal questions about life here and living here, and he was just awesome. And of course, he didn't get worked out when I was there either. And sometimes he's, and I think that's amazing to actually see this happening in person. To actually see these, how they're built. And I even asked him, why do you take the log and then wrap it around another log? And he was giving us all the answers. And why it's out of western red cedar, which, by the way, isn't even on Sitka. They have to get it from another island, and he explained why. The bug resistance, they less split it, they don't split as much. I mean, and it was just fascinating. Because we looked, and you know what? After talking to him and seeing that and seeing these, it gave us a whole nother perspective about totem poles in their place other than just, there's a totem pole. What it takes to carve one. It takes 5 months to build one of those, to carve one of those. And so, I would love to see an audio guide. Like that Lynn and Angie guide, it would be fun. Because when you walk through this, I've got to tell you that we waited till the crowd subsided. And then we started walking through this park. And I have to tell you, this was the #1 highlight for us in Sitka, was this trail. And you might be going, really? It's just another trail. For you might say, oh my gosh, he's got a good life. But it really is stunning. And for us, whether it's raining, for us the sun was filtering through the trees. I mean, it was like walking through a rainforest. It was quiet. It was peaceful. We can hear the eagles on street, squawking to each other on the treetops. And so just seeing these, was just an exceptional experience. We loved it. We absolutely loved it. I think that every visitor, if he said if there's 2 things you should do in Sitka, this would be one of them. It's just that special. As you're walking through there, it's so peaceful. This is about people that are coming from big cities. I don't care whether it's Seattle, or Portland, or New York, or Detroit, or wherever. They come out here, and it's just this whole decompression. And I think that's something we need to market for Sitka. You just can decompress. And it's another reason to come here outside the cruise ship or do the trails when the cruise ships, when people are back on board. We learned that if we could go into downtown and everything like after 4 o'clock, it would be perfect. And so it's just really incredible experience. So easily our favorite one. And then, of course, we did have dinner at the Westmark. We had to make a reservation, and we did, and it was great. We did a great job. And then after dinner, we did go down to this building, which we had no idea what the name of it was. Now this, obviously, it is, really, there's one little sign above the door that's written in almost, it says whatever Centennial Building, but you can't really see that from the street. You don't know what, you see a beautiful building there, but you don't know what the name of it is. And by the way, these directories through town, world class. Really, really great job. Those are stunning views. I wish the type was a little bit bigger on some of those, but other than that, they are just absolutely stunning. They're fabulous. We use those constantly. For pedestrians, absolutely. For vehicles, we still need to do a wayfinding system, which doesn't have to be that expensive. But now, there's this. Does anything ever take place here? What? Oh, then, so it's not like, I kept going, why isn't the farmer's market right there? Why is it in another part of town? And I kept going, so that is not used for public uses then, it's just a little bit, okay. I think this would be a fantastic place for a public market. Right now, I think it's at the Brotherhood Hall or something. I go, why is it right here where visitors can also visit it and maybe have artisans there? I thought it should be right here. But it looks like a great little event space. And if things happen there, I was thinking you should have a couple of reader boards in downtown that just say, here's what's coming up tomorrow or this week or next week, or always invite us back. Always invite us back.
That's primarily for fishermen.
It's primarily, okay. But even if there was an interpretive sign, by the way, this is primarily for fishermen, this is where they come up and will tend or mend the nets and, just tell us a little bit about it. So, wasn't used at all this week. And then we did see over here the Russian bishop's house, kind of across the street there. We did not get a chance to go in it. Once again, too many things to do. But it looks fabulous. I think they're doing some work on it. And we did the sea walk, and that was really great. I mean, that is really another little highlight of downtown is being able to walk this and see the marina, and you have the interpretive signs. I mean, you know what? In Sitka, you really do things right. Really. I mean, you don't know how many places I'm going to go and say, here's what they do in Sitka. They get it. Now, you've had decades of cruise ships here to really get you to perfect it, and I think you do an outstanding job. And, however, I would double the width of the sidewalk. I would actually, if you see right here, I put these little yellow lines right there, and you can do it with paver stones, because you can see where they're trampling the lawn. I mean, when you have the cruise ships here, the sidewalk's not near wide enough. You can't have a couple, if a couple walk side by side there, you're pretty much using the whole sidewalk and nobody can get around it. So you see couples going in single file so people coming the other way. But I think you can easily double the width there. You can see there's paver stones on the right side. I think doing some on the left side there, I think would be additional. It'd be some less lawn you have to go. And by the way, the lawn gets kind of mucky in the rain. But I think making that a little wider would be great. It would also give you a place, and you could even thin the waterfront vegetation. I don't know what kind of environmental things, but some parts it's a little thick to get just a brush. I'm not saying to clear it out, but just to open up those views a little bit. You can even add additional seating during the summer months, or even trash barrels here if you pave them. If you pave, I use paper stones there to make that wider. So another suggestion. And we love seeing community-based assets. This isn't meant to be really for visitors. I'm sure visitors were using it. We saw kids and families using it. But I think these kind of assets tell us that Sitka really cares about the people who live here. And as visitors, we want to be kind of part of the family for that few hours or few days. I think it's very well done. I think it's just a great playground. I love seeing the musical instruments out there, and if we get a chance later, I'll be out there doing those. So you say, what is that guy doing out there? But I think it's just very, very nice. I could not believe how many people were commenting on this. Did you guys just do that?
Yes.
Okay, because people go, that is so cool. Even the local kids are going there. And of course, we're like everybody else taking pictures of a sport court. You know, but just once again, color. Imagine that. Imagine some of these colors on your building. So we did go out, we did the zero walk all the way out to the end. You can see it starting to be sunset. And we go out there to the end. And by the way, we walk right by the fish hatchery. This, obviously, it's under construction. There should be a sign that says, here's when it will be done, here's what it will include. But one thing that shocked us is that there is absolutely zero information about your fisheries. We can find out about how many breeds, how many types of salmon there are here, and those type of things. But here we see fish in here, and they're banging up against this gate trying to get in. The other gate down there is open, and I was like, I wonder if I should climb the fence and open that so we can let them in. Actually, I wasn't going to do that. But I'm trying to figure out why the fish are in there, they're trapped in there, they can't get out. There's fish jumping everywhere, they're constantly jumping out there. And there'd be 20, 30 people out there who are all asking the same questions and there's no answers. And then there's a net going across trying to keep them out. Why? And maybe the net doesn't go all the way down. Maybe it has a smaller opening just to help. I don't know. We don't know anything about whatever's going on. And so there's keeping them from the fish ladders. So why are the fish trapped inside the hatchery? Where some of it's gated, some of it's not, you know. And so we had so many. What a great opportunity. I mean, Alaska's considered the greatest fishery in the world. For salmon, for halibut, for all these fish. And there was no information about it. I just thought, man, what a golden opportunity to educate people about the spawning salmon and all of that information. And yet all the displays were about plants at the river's edge. Or they were about, you know, salmon neighborhoods, eat or be eaten, that shows the life cycle. But nothing about what the hatchery's there for, what it does, why it's there, why fish are jumping, all of that information. And none of us, we're all going like this because we had no answers. There was nobody to even ask. So we said, the next day we're going to go to the Science Center. I'm sure they will have all the answers. So let's go to Tuesday. Here we are. This was our walk Sitka day. So we spent Sunday, Monday out there driving everywhere and trying to discover. So now let's start walking. And of course we came out of the hotel. We love the landscaping. Looks very nice. Love the fact that we've got planters and benches. I wish we had more of those on some buildings, which you'll see. And then we walked downtown, and sure enough, the streets were closed, and we went, yes, hallelujah! Because downtowns need to be about people, not cars and traffic. And I'm sure you do this we noticed that you do it on the busier cruise days. It was fascinating. I don't know where they're getting this information, but every retailer knew how many ships there were, what the names of those ships were, how many passengers. There must be like a website where they can look that up. Okay. And because they knew, well, are you on this boat or this boat? So how do you know that? So yeah, I wish we knew what that was. We could have timed some of our stuff around. And so obviously you close the street some days, probably when the bigger cruise ships or multiple cruise ships. We thought that was brilliant, just excellent job. However, we would love to see you have a bunch of folding picnic tables. The streets are void of vehicles, but we have all these food trucks and there's no place to sit down and eat. So you provide the great atmosphere, but no seating. And so I thought, man, if the town, the city went out and bought like some of these all fold up, like the one you see it there at the top. And these are like $200 a piece, so maybe they're even sponsored. This one's sponsored by a bank. You know, this one's sponsored by Visit Sitka, whatever. And you can even have those sponsored. But we thought, man, if you could just have like 40 of those through downtown, and I know it just adds to putting up the barricades and doing all of that. But I'll tell you, we would spend more money, we would spend more time, we would eat at these. Look at all these people lined up for food trucks, and there's not one single place to sit. And so I thought, man, you can make it such a better experience just by creating sometimes the tables and chairs out there. I mean, I can see 2 or 3 right here, 3 or 4 right here. And you've got 2 food trucks there, but thank goodness for the Silver Basin letting all of us line up and use all of their stairs as a place to sit and eat lunch. They didn't come out and kick us out. I'm surprised they didn't, because I took this when there was nobody there, but there were times when there were 10 or 15 people sitting on those steps to eat. And so thank them for not kicking us out. But that would be great. And so, I mean, we love the fact that the streets were closed to vehicles. We have some ideas that you're going to see coming up. We did go to the cathedral, which is absolutely beautiful. And by the way, one thing I want to mention, my wife Jane, go ahead, raise your hand, Jane. She's right back there in the corner. You cannot do an assessment without a woman. She sees things totally different than I do as a guy. I look for the wayfinding, all of those physical things, and she looks for the feeling, the experience, those types of things. When we walked out of the historic trail, she came here once, many years ago, on a cruise ship with her sister and her mother. And she remembered coming to Sitka, but she didn't remember all the details. But after we walked through that forest walk, she said, that is something I will never forget the rest of my life. I mean, just that simple walk. And she did remember the cathedral. We did see the Pioneer Home. Now, I'm not too sure, who are the residents here? Is this like a retirement home, or is it veterans? What is it? It's a retirement home?
Nursing home.
What's that?
Nursing home.
Oh, it's a nursing home, okay. We weren't too sure. It says Pioneer Homes gift shop, first floor, items made by the residents, but we didn't know who the residents were. And so it might be good if there was some interpretive display, to explain who this is or what Pioneer Home was or used to be. I think there was some information somewhere I saw. But anyway, a beautiful building, incredible views. Once again, it'd be nice to know who lives there. And I'm not too sure, does anything ever take place here at this park? It does? So here's another situation where if you have a reader board that says, here's what we have in August, September, always invite us back. Always invite us back. You know what? If you want sustainable tourism, you need 8 months, not 5. Your cruise ship months. You need 8 months. That makes it sustainable for any business. 5 months leaves them with 7 months where they have to fend for themselves with hardly any tourism. And so I thought if you have activities that here, invite us back, put up a reader board. So I have a wild idea for this. So you're going to see a couple of these. I thought, what if we took that square right there, total square, and what if, see that kind of yellow, that would be paver stone. So we took out lawn, we kept the ring of lawn around it, and we made it a paver stone surface like this. Because it's really hard to do events on a lawn where you get a lot of rain. And so we thought if you did paver stones like that, you can even have some of them sponsored. You could do this. This is wood here. It's not real wood. It's made from recycled plastics. It looks like wood, but it perks. It lets water run through it. You can even ring the outside of it with planters like these, just to create kind of an enclosed area a little bit with places for people to walk through. These they can actually move around. They're on casters, so you can actually move them around a little bit. And they have little chains if you want to keep them from walking between them there. Or you can even put like tree boxes like this around there. And then of course, you can put in some trash cans there. One thing you have in your town, you use these huge garbage cans that you can put like a family inside. And I think, I know that you do that because this time of year there's so many people. But I thought having a few of these, a little more decorative would be great. And I thought, if you create a place like that was all paved stones, it'd probably be about the size of this room when you're done with it. You can even just put it full of activities. For local, this is for locals first, and then visitors will play there too. But you can even have like somebody like the Aspen Sweets might say, we'll sponsor the Fourscore and the Jingle Blocks. So I put in, you know, I'm not going to go through all this right now because of time, but you can have all these, you know, these big chess sets, but you can have this place downtown where people can come and just play the giant chess sets. Or they can play the Fourscore and the Foursquare right up there. Or Jenga blocks. You can buy the big Jenga blocks for like 70 bucks a piece. Even foosball, ping pong tables during the summer. I mean, I even thought, man, can you imagine doing this? Have little hula hoops out there on the hoop. You know, you have to have a couple of volunteers out there and just spend some time working with, you know, putting things back and putting chess sets back. Even these spun chairs, I thought those are pretty cool. Those you have to be careful so you don't hit somebody when they're walking by. And you have musical instruments over at the other park, but I thought this would be a great bookend because the other park is a playground, and you can't change it from that. It is a playground, and it's great. But over here, you can mix the type of activities, you know, with more of those musical instruments. You can even have little vendor booths where local people that are doing jewelry or fishing lures or anything could come and rent a couple of booths for like 50 bucks a day or a booth for 50 bucks a day and then sell their wares. You know, you can even have a portable skate park there or cornhole tosses. You can even, in the winter months, you can put out propane fire, in the fall months, you know, fall and spring months. Put out propane fire propane fireplaces, fire pits. You know, this is bad. These are just ideas. I'd love to see a place where in Canmore, Alberta, they have those out year round. So people out there in the rain using exercise equipment or in the snow in their case. But I just thought it would be cool to have some place in town that you can just program things going in and out. And so one week you might have 5 foosball tables out there. The next week you might have some other types of activities, and you can move them around by season. Even your local golf, we know what's going on in Totem Square today. So it's an activity place. For people to come up with families, and the families say, okay, we hiked the trail, we've been downtown shopping, we want something to do, this gives them a great place to play. So all of these big mega chess sets, all of these things, that's called Imagination Playground there. I thought, man, during spring breaks, during summer breaks, those are like foam Lincoln logs. Those things are so cool. I was like out there, get out of my way, kid, it's my turn. I didn't. But I wanted to. But really cool things that you could do. You know what? All that stuff I just showed you, I know I breezed right through it. By the way, we're going to give Lori all of this whole presentation. It is being recorded, and there's going to be a follow-up assessment, findings, and suggestions report. So we'll have all of these in more detail for you if you decide to know this. But if you were to buy everything I showed you, all of that stuff, all of it, and quantities of each, the whole thing was $76,000. But if sponsors paid for that, you might even spend a couple $1,000 doing sandwich boards that say today's activities are sponsored by the Aspen Hotel or Mean Clean or any local organization. You can have all these being sponsored. Big cruise ships could even sponsor. Anyway, I just think that would be a really cool idea. But what it is, it's about making your downtown. You've got a great playground, you've got a sport court, but now you can have an activity center. I want you to know something about this picture. Notice in the background those big spools? It doesn't have to be expensive. Once you put down that paver base, you can put all kinds of things out there and just have a great place for people to come and play and spend time. You know, I mean, here's one with checkers. You know, you can see the chess over there and the checkers right here. This is in downtown Seattle. And in downtown Seattle, you can see they put out the tables and chairs, but then they'll bring out the foosball tables. You can see them right there. I mean, you can even use where people come in and can. I took this in Nova Scotia, where they actually have a container sitting next to the park, and then they do Segway tours during the summer, and then they pack them up, move the container out for the winter months. You know, even a great place for bike rentals. But if you had a square like that, you could even bring in artisans in actions doing chainsaw carvings or any other ice carvings in the winter. So, make sense? Just an idea. Be nice for you to have a program place for both visitors and your locals. And mainly for your locals. So, back downtown. We saw this and we didn't know, we wanted to go in and see the backdrop. Because we saw this right there, that backdrop. And we weren't there, our timing didn't work to go to a show at 11:30 or 3, because remember, we're here working. And so we didn't have a chance, but I just wanted to go in and see that backdrop. I just thought that was so spectacular. But we didn't know if we could do that. And I don't even know how is this the door where you go in there? That is where you go, okay. Because I wasn't sure if you could go in there, will they let you just go in there and look at the backdrop when there's no performances?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I wish I would have known that. We would have gone in there. But I thought, well, we're not here for performance, we're not buying tickets, they're probably not going to let us in. We just didn't know. But it's really cool. We did kind of walk down this street a little further, and we consider this kind of the sketchy part of Sitka. No offense, but it's, we start seeing boarded up windows and weeds growing between the sidewalks of the buildings, and and we saw this building, and it could really use some paint. But what's interesting is we walked over to the front of it, and the doors were open. And so we walked in, and it's actually fabulous. Now, the Clinkets, I think, are interested in opening this up to the public, because it has great displays all around it. But they're going to need better signage on the front. They're going to need to make it look a little better. And when we start walking down the street, it's like, should we keep walking down the street? This doesn't look, and there's no real sidewalks or anything. So if they do open this up, you got to make it easy for people to want to walk down the street and find it. But I think the displays, the history, the photography in there is absolutely fabulous. So I hope they do open that up. That's one of the great things about Sitka is your Native American history, the culture behind it. And then after we did that, we did come back down. We didn't keep going past that. I don't know if we missed anything or not, but it seemed to be more industrial, fishing oriented. And so we did that back downtown, and we saw this. And we see Baranoff Castle State Historic Site. See this couple there? There they are. I want you to see this. So there they are. I took this picture. I waited about a minute, and here they are leaving. They took one look up those stairs and went out of here. However, what I thought is, one look, no thanks. I mean, it would be nice if there was another sign, because we didn't know this, that you can actually go around the other side and take the ramp up, and there's actually shortcuts to the ramp. But a lot of people, they weren't the only ones. They would go there, they would look up those stairs and went, I don't think so. However, that is worth the walk. And that's something that you need to do. So I just think doing, ramp walkway around the other side. And by the way, this is starting to get awfully overgrown in here. So I hope somebody will go in there and kind of clean that up a little bit. And I see somebody getting whacked on the shoulder right there. Thank you, John. Just kidding. No. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. And it should, it's just right.
When I have a better knee, I'll do it again.
Yeah. And it's actually a really cool, and it's almost easy to miss it because you're sandwiched between City Hall and the buildings, and it does tend to get a little bit overgrown in there. But good displays there, and so yes, we did hike up to the top. And then you start to get weeds right on the stairs. And so, but once you get up there, you just go, whoa, this is pretty cool. And that's where you learn the history of what was there. And I thought it was just fabulous. And of course, the views, even on a cloudy day, were stunning. And when we're up there, we look down there, and we can see the tour bus. We can see there's a little dock down there under the bridge, kind of the troll under the bridge a little bit. But we decided we got to go check that out. And that's when we discovered the ramps that go down that side. Because we missed it from the other side, because we're so oriented downtown, we didn't notice that. And so we did walk over there. We saw the boat that looks like a submarine almost. And there's another cruise boat there. And we love this sign. We just thought, man, if you put some potted plants, I know it doesn't get a lot of direct sun or water into there, but we thought, man, just something to make that look a little better. Because that's a great billboard right there. I mean, it tells you So if you're coming off of a boat or getting onto a boat, it will tell you everything to do right there within walking distance. So excellent job with that. Glad that was there. And even the views from right there, I mean, just, you know, we want to go take these pictures today, so I need to hurry up. No, I'm just kidding. But just absolutely stunning. And then, so we're walking, remember this is our walk day, so we're walking down, and we did see this church. It's beautiful, love the mix of stone and wood. And in front is this, Sitka Farmers Market. I wish there would have been more of these, a couple more of these, a little bit cleaned up from that one. They just let us know. I always say, invite us back. Let us know when your farmers markets are, what's going on Totem Square or downtown or in Centennial Plaza, whatever you got going on. Always say, here's what's coming next week or the next month. Always invite us back. And so having a couple of those would be great. And then we did go to the Sheldon Jackson Museum. Well, there's all these built right here, this whole campus, we see all these buildings. And we're not sure if any of them are open to the public what they are. And I'm assuming like this one, that's not open to the public, am I right? It's not, okay. I mean, it was easy to find the museum, but the sign is right here. So we weren't sure when we walked up to this building. Then we finally saw the other building. Once we got back here, we said, oh, this has got to be the museum. And so, notice all the flyers and posters in the window. This is not just for them, it's for every merchant. Once you get past 4, people will ignore them all. That's a study that was done. So there's, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 things pasted on windows and stuff. And what happens is we ignore them all. So I always tell merchant stuff, if somebody comes and wants you to hang up a poster for the farmer's market stuff, and say, okay, which one am I taking down? Otherwise, we tend to ignore them all. So it's just a FYI for you. This is an incredible museum. One thing that was really special, there's a young man working there now who actually lived out in the bush for 10 years in a town of 200 somewhere in, I think, central Alaska. In a Native American community. I can't remember which tribe it was, but he talked about what he wore for gloves and everything. I said, so what was like when he was Sitka? He goes, oh my God, it was so shocking. They actually had a grocery store here. He could buy things like chicken. They don't have chicken there. See what I mean? I mean, it was interesting to hear his perspective. And there are 5,500 artifacts in there. And guess what? There's another 5,000 to 10,000 artifacts that are being cryogenically frozen or they're in storage and stuff that they can put out. It is an amazing display. And I had a big question for him because Sheldon Jackson was here as a missionary, and one of his jobs was to assimilate the native culture into the American way of life. Yet here he was collecting Native American ways of life artifacts, like one of the best displays anywhere. And so I talked to him about that conflicting thing. But he said he's trying to assimilate them in American ways, but he wasn't trying to remove them. He was telling that in the old days they wanted to move these people to California. You know, they wanted to even move them off the island. He said, no way were we going to do that. So it was interesting to hear that story. But it is a fabulous museum. I mean, it's incredible. There's just no way you can spend all day in there and not go through half this stuff. So then we finally decided, okay, now we're going to get some answers to that whole fishing thing. So here we have the Science Center. It looks amazing. It's 2 stories. It's this huge building. But first, we're going to get some chowder, which, by the way, is really good there. And so we did exactly that. And by the way, what will you learn? Look at this. The build-up to this science museum is absolutely incredible. So we did get some chowder, and by the way, there weren't enough tables and chairs, and there was no garbage cans anywhere. I mean, so if you're going to sell food, somebody needs to put garbage cans somewhere. Luckily, we would all walk inside, and we stuffed the one garbage can that was next to the cash register. The girl was shelling out all the chowder, like by 12:30 or so. She was already running out of food. I mean, it was really busy. But what a beautiful spot. So then, And it pains me to say this was our biggest disappointment in all of Sitka. And I mean no offense. You pay, like for two of us, $16 and you have one room. That's it. There's no information about the fishery. It's just a title. And we can hear other people going, that's it? This should be free. It should be free. I think it's cool for kids coming there to touch, but you have like 3 aquariums. It's not a science center, it's an aquarium. And so we were expecting something that we didn't get, and that's what you don't ever want to do. So no offense to them. I don't know if they're associated to the hatchery or if they're totally standalone. I thought was really cool. I have it almost memorized now. The 5 types of salmon and the chums for thumb and sockeye, all of those things. I thought that was a good sign, but overall, that was the one thing we were pretty disappointed. So no offense. I mean, all the upstairs, I guess, is just offices, and I don't know what's in the rest of the downstairs, but we just expected more than about a 10-minute experience for the money. If it would have been free or $1, or even if you just did donation only, had a donation box where we would have donated money. But to pay to go in and see a science center and get 3 aquariums and the tidal pools, I thought was just not what we're looking for, and we saw other people make the same comments. So it wasn't just us. So that was it. So from there we decided we're going to head to the Raptor Center, we're going to walk it. And so we started going up the road, and this area needs to be cut back. It's starting to totally overgrow the sidewalk. There are areas going up there, you can see the National Cemetery in the background there, where the things are hanging out. I'm going like this, walking down the sidewalk, trying not to be out in the street. And so this can get cut back. I don't know whether it's by the homeowners or the town, but like this, it's hanging out clear over the sidewalk and into the street. It's like this tall, which is fine for Jane, but not for me. And so this all needs to be kind of cut back so we can get up there. Maybe there's a better route to this. I'm not too sure. We could have gone through the other trail, but we're already in downtown. We did want to see this. Once we got up here, we weren't too sure. Now there's a lot of road construction going on right there, and so I wasn't sure if this is the crosswalk you go on, or this seemed to be the entrance. I'm not sure if that's the right entrance or the real one. But it'd be good if there's decorative crosswalks that maybe even had, pole and light and some lights would light up to let vehicles know. Because when they come in now with traffic, with the construction, it was no big deal. But I can see in other times, people come around the corner, they're going pretty fast because they're coming into town. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight, but I wasn't sure where you really went across or how you went in there. So we started walking down towards the Raptor Center. We even saw wayfinding signs out here. Pedestrian wayfinding. We went, yes! Now, if that was combined with vehicular wayfinding, it would be fantastic. So somewhere along here, we did cross the street. And we did see these footprints, but they're worn off. I hope somebody goes out and repaints them, because I think that's really cool. Follow the footsteps to the Raptor Center. So those, we could see that they were there, but they're pretty much worn out. And by the way, this is another place I did a car totally missed. Totally missed.
They were told to remove those yellow markers.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? It's
Why?
It's not city.
State.
None of that city. It's
Sitka is a mosaic of federal, state, and city lands, and each of them have to be asked permission to do various.
I believe in asking permission.
Crosswalks.
I'm just surprised
It's
they
an
allowed you.
interesting conundrum that we are facing.
Yeah, and I totally get that, but I mean, we've seen West Yellowstone have bear tracks all through their downtown, on public property, on public land, on public sidewalks.
But those are real.
See, you know what? And this is where you run into this. You're right. It is a conundrum. You say, well, how authentic is it versus creating a good visitor experience? And I don't know, you did without tourism pretty much for a couple of years. I mean, you still had people fishing, you still had people, you didn't have cruise, you didn't have boats for a couple of years. I just think you need to have a good visitor experience. I think having those on the sidewalk helps create a good experience and a sense of anticipation. I mean, I don't think everything has to be 100% authentic and look actually like the actual bird tracks or eagle tracks or what. I mean, I just think you're just trying to create a pleasant experience that's fun, it's exciting, and people have a good time, and it creates a sense of anticipation. It is easy to miss this. When we drove by here, we didn't even notice it because the sign is set way back in there. And when we went by the first time, there weren't a bunch of buses there, you know, and so. You know, you need a gateway or a sign. This sign up here should probably be out at the street. Now, once again, if you're dealing with just cruise passengers, they're all being bussed in there. But remember, we want you to extend your seasons. To extend your seasons, then get people that are flying to Sitka for Sitka, renting a car, staying in a hotel, eating every meal at a restaurant. You know what? If you lost the cruise industry, and you know, heaven forbid you ever do. If you lost the cruise industry, but you can get 1/3 of that number of people here for multiple days, you probably have more spending and 1/3 the visitors. See what I mean? Now, I'm not saying get rid of the cruise ship industry or anything, but I just want you to, this is a place that's worthy of coming for several days and spending some time here. And that's why putting that there for people that do rent cars like us would be great. We did walk up there, and it's a pretty steep walk from downtown. And we went there, we did go ahead and we bought tickets. And when we went there was one bus there. When we left, there was like 7. And so it got a little bit overcrowded. It is a beautiful facility. I hope it gets more species. I think there was like 5 eagles, 1 red-tailed hawk, and some owls. And so I wish it had a little more species, you know, because once you've seen 5 bald eagles, you've seen a lot of bald eagles. And but I think it's a great facility. The staff does a good job. People are having a good time there. It's beautiful. Now, when we walk through, there's this. There's nothing that says, I don't know if there's displays on the hour, every half hour, or if that's only for special groups, or if almost, there's no information. So we didn't know whether we should sit and wait for another presentation. There should be some kind of sign that says, here's what we do, and it's on the hour, every hour for 20 minutes. Even when we walked out here, we walked out to the front, and there was a young man out there, and he's talking, he's gathering all the people there, and they're going to go into a theater or something, and he was going on and on about which cruise ship you're on and everything. We sat there for about 5 minutes, and we didn't know what we were going to see or what we were going to do. There's no signs. And so we left. And so with these, they should just put it out in the very front lobby and just say every hour for 25 minutes, we show a film or we just show birds. I don't know what they even do. And the same in this room. So there was no information. So, and so that would always invite us back. Even if it's like, oh, we only do that once a day, they always say, man, we need to come back again and do that. So, then we ended up going down, we did cross the street, and we did go back through through the trail, the totem, I don't know what we call it, totem trail. We went back through the trail right there, you can see the far right side of your screen right there. And while we're there, going over the bridge, and look at all the fish. I mean, it's like, wow. So somebody is letting them through down there, because they're getting up here somehow. And what's interesting, they're pretty much stationary there. I don't know if this is where they actually spawn. I thought right here would be a good place for a sign, even a temporary sign where this may only happen for a month of the year. But they seem to be, they weren't really moving upstream. I don't know if they're on a break, whether they're spawning. We didn't really know the story, and it would be good to know the story. I mean, your fishery is legendary, and I think as a visitor, I'd like to know, how do you maintain it? How do you make your fishery sustainable? And what do you do? And how does that work with wild species versus, farm raised? I mean, that whole thing would be really educational. And we did see these signs around, and they're great. Everywhere we went, we used them constantly. So now, we're finally coming back to downtown and concentrating on downtown. The first sign we saw was this one. This is like out in front of Mean Queen, 3-hour parking. Go, really? And I didn't know why there would be 3-hour parking. I mean, the other parking by Centennial's like 72 hours, I think, something like that, which I thought was great. I thought this would be a great place for employees to park, get them down here. You know, and the big thumbs up for your restaurant is so glad you don't use porta potties. I mean, this is treating your guests right by creating these. I tell other cities all over, get these, use these. I mean, these are fantastic. The real restroom versus a porta potty. I thought it was great. I think you do a good job. And by the way, there's my quote. Let me go back to that. Relieved visitors spend more. It's true. They do. And the fact that you have restrooms everywhere, I think was fantastic. Now, one thing for your merchants. I hope over time you extend your hours. Because for us, and the people that are flying here or coming here for fishing that are not on a cruise ship, we generally would like to come here downtown for dinner, dining, and shopping, and you close when the cruise ships leave, for the most part. And so it would be nice, just so you know, across the country, not in Sitka, across the country, 70% of all retail spending takes place after 6 p.m. across the country. Now, for you, I'm not saying you have to do this, but as you start to grow your tourism beyond just cruise ship hours, I hope that some of your shops will start to stay open until 7 or a little bit later, just to get us that want to go there when the crowds aren't there. We did see these right down on your main intersection, but one of those corners, the signs are missing. So we and other people just go and say, we can't remember which button goes which way, so we push them both. Right? And so there we just need you to go back and add those onto this sign. It could be that maybe there was a traffic accident or somebody ran into the sign, I don't know why it's missing on one of the 4 corners. And so that would be another thing to do. Centennial Hall, fantastic, beautiful facility, very nice. And once again, you know, it's a hub of activity. But can you read any signage anywhere that tells you what this building is? You can't. I mean, it's under the awning there, and you can read it when you get up to about the doors. And so this is why you need a sign out Main Street that says, "This is welcome to Centennial Hall." But it is a gorgeous building. I think it's fantastic. We went in there just to watch people, to watch them go around, to see visitor information, to check in their phones. I mean, I think the visitor information staff there does an excellent job. They're so helpful. They must answer the same questions over and over and over and over. Yet they never treat people like, oh, it's going to be open till, you know, they were just very nice. They did a great job. And then, I think this is the number one thing everybody should do when they're in Sitka. I don't see cruise ships. You know, even if it was free, I think it's worth paying for. But I think this museum should be a #1 priority because it tells you how Alaska came to be. And it's got the point of view from the indigenous people to the Russians to the Americans. I mean, it talks all about that. And it does it in chronological. It's just fabulous. I think it's a must-do. If I was doing a thing, the top 3 things you have to do in Sitka, this would be #1. The National Historic Site would be #2. And #3 would probably be do the Seawalk. And the hatchery and those. Maybe Jackson Sheldon. But this museum is absolutely excellent. Displays are easy to read. And sometimes it's so busy in there, yet you don't even notice the museum's there. And the first time we were there, we missed the museum. We went back and said, oh my gosh, there's a museum in here. And we almost totally missed it just because there was crowds of people in there. But the whole treaty, the whole, you know, we had no clue before we got here that Alaska started in Sitka. Most people say, where did Alaska go? Anchorage. Go, wrong! Sitka. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great story. I just think it's absolutely well done. So for us, it was great how we see, you know, the tour vendors come out here. I think that was excellent, well orchestrated. I love seeing that you have a paddle pub, a pedal pub. Those are so cool. I never saw them pedaling around town, but you see these in other cities like Santa Fe and bigger cities. But pedal pub in Sitka I thought was pretty funny, or pretty fun. Beautification. 70% of first-time sales comes from curb appeal. We all travel. Have you ever said these words? That looks like a nice place to eat. We all do it. We judge the book by the cover. So I want to talk about beautification. I think most of your merchants do a great job. I mean, number one, she has a really great little. Does she have the cat? Was the oh, she had the dog. And but anyway, beautiful shop. Curb appeal means so much. And I think right here, this is a really good example. We've got a blade sign. Blade signs are signs that are perpendicular to us, so we know what we have, what you're selling. And then it's got the beautification there on the other side. It's got nice window displays. We've got a great little teaser there, got a little chalkboard down there, a reason why we should go into the shop. We've got additional beautification there. All the ingredients. We'd love to see more merchants do this. I mean, that's just great. And most of downtown looks absolutely fabulous. We love the fact that you have a co-op gallery. It's so important. Local is what we want as visitors. And people that are on cruise ships, people that are here fishing, people that are here flying in here, we're looking for, we will spend more than, we're not just t-shirt buyers. And so I think that's really, I think they do a great job. I love to see the Island Artist Gallery, the cooperative. But that's a bike rack, right? I think those are fabulous. I wish I had even more of them. And they're just great. And by the way, that cooperative is excellent. And it's cool that the artisans actually work it. You know, I'm sure they took times. But then you have other buildings that are so visible, they just go, oh. And this is one of them. And I'm sorry, you know what? This is why I have to leave Sitka really fast when we're done. Now, I can say things you'd like to say, but can't without paying a political price. I can always go with my tail tucked between my legs, you can. But here, I love the rock work, but everything's gray. There's no curb appeal. Even when you look in the windows, you see the back sides of refrigerators and stuff. And it's right on the main corner in your downtown. If they could just put some pots and benches here, would just at least soften it. You know, I mean, we're going to go to Laverne, Minnesota. This is a little town in Minnesota. They have severe winters. You know, maybe not as much rain as you, but they have a lot of snow. And look at it. I mean, their whole downtown, they do this. But even just a little teeny bench like that with a couple of window baskets, or even like this, that's not a restaurant. Even though it has a table, 2 chairs, and pots, there's no reason why merchants that don't have beautifications can't do this kind of display. It doesn't cost that much to do. This is all one little town. None of these, that's not a restaurant, and neither is this. But just add some more curb appeal. You know, spending will increase. And think about this. For women account for 80% of all retail spending. I'm waiting. Usually there's a guy who pipes up right about now and will make some comment like, that's all. But that's actually a true fact. And women want to feel safe and welcome, and that's what beautification does. So cater to women. You know, I mean, and there's just, and so I think they do a really great job, but I thought, okay, even right here, wouldn't it be good if there was a pot right there, and a pot right there, and a pot right there, and a pot right there. We just finish off dressing up a really great shop. You know, you can even create a buying co-op where we create pots. Like right here, I'd love to see a pot, a bench, a pot. You know, or even just a pot on each side of the door, just to add more curb appeal. And you can even do perennials, you can even do evergreens for some of these. But even right here, so there's that quote, 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. Oh, that looks like a great shop, let's go in. And so there's so many shops downtown that have there's nothing to soften it from the facade to the sidewalk. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Leavenworth, Washington, the little Bavarian town. I mean, they know beautification like you can't believe, and they do very well. But I think just adding some pots, hanging baskets, anything there to help soften that would be great. Look at this. This is in Neenah, Wisconsin. No, the city does the facade side, the city does the curbside, merchants do the facade side, before or after. By the way, doing that increased retail sales by 1/3. Just creating the facade beautification. So even in Sitka, I think the city can be charged with curbside beautification or cleaning the storm drains or gutters, those type of things. But we think merchants or a business improvement district or something should do the facade side. This is a public-private partnership downtown. And so a lot of these areas like this, it's you got some beautification, but then you have these big gaps. And it just, on a dreary day, this is on a decent day, it just looks a little bit drab, and that's what beautification can add for you, particularly during those peak months. I imagine if you had benches and pots all along here. And, so you have a lot of this thing. This is a fantastic store, but I can just imagine a pot where you see the white bricks and then put a bench between them. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. But you can see we're here, we can just finish it off and just be a little bit better. And I avoid the garage sale look. I do not believe in having clothes racks out on the sidewalk. I just think it makes you look second class. We had the same conversation in West Yellowstone, we've had it in other places. In places like Leavenworth, Washington, you cannot do that. You can extend window displays to exterior spaces. Well, you wouldn't put a clothes rack in the window, so you don't put it in the exterior space. Unless you're doing a garage sale weekend, where things are just, everything's for sale. But just rolling clothes racks out there just makes you look like a second-tier city, and you're not. Your merchants are fantastic. Your art galleries are fantastic. So I would urge merchants not to just line it up with t-shirts. You know what? It can get worse than it is, and that's what you don't want. And so I think it's just really important to avoid that look. You can certainly hanging them on the door, or I'm going to show you some examples, but I just think this is what you don't want to do. And so I think that's a great job there. I'm not so sure about showing the wolf right there, or is it a coyote? I don't know how PETA would feel about that if they came into town. But I think doing displays like that where it's not tables with stuff piled on there or clothes racks would be great. Let me give you some examples like that. This is a little town of Canmore, Alberta. Like that. Every morning the merchant will take 15 minutes and she sets that all up. And I'll even ask merchants, why do you do that? She goes, because it increases our sales. It pulls people into our shop. So doing displays like that are absolutely phenomenal. I think every merchant should have 2 to 3 feet to do that, at least a couple of feet. Instead of putting out clothes racks, do something like that. You can even do 2 or 3 of those. And then, there we go, there's that quote. 80% of all retail spending is by women. Take a look at this next photo. What do you see? Guys are going, think we're good that, right? And so, benches. I always have 2 words for you. Think benches. There's Jane playing model. You can tell she was really happy with it. But once again, benches, flanked with pots. And the benches don't have to be all cookie cutter the same. We want it to reflect the store owner. That store. But benches in your downtown, you can use more of them. And I'll show you, you do have some. But I think these are great little examples of what merchants can do. And by the way, benches should always be at the facade facing out. Always, just like your front porch. And so, right here, this is a little ice cream shop. She will give people ice cream, but they will eat it in those 4 chairs. Because the second people see them eating ice cream, they go, where'd you get that? And there'll be a line coming out the door. I think that's a great thing to do. So you can see these little towns. That's Wickford, Rhode Island, a little town. But downtown should be just like your house. Why do we put chairs on the front porch? We may never sit them, but it makes our home feel welcome. It's the same with retail stores. And so that's what you can add. I think, right there's actually a woman sitting on a bench, look. Pretty rare. But I think having that there was really great. Every one of these, every single bench we saw in downtown had people on them. And there weren't enough. Here, I would have 2 chairs on each side, so somebody's not sitting here by themselves. It's like a century when you have 1 chair on each side. But I think adding a couple more chairs, at least it's the right idea. But all these places would be great. Put a bench right over there. I would love to see you have like 30 or 40 more benches downtown. They could be decorative. They could be all different to match the building. It would just make it a place for people to hang out. And you know what? When they're relaxed, when the guys are sitting at benches, shop to your heart's content, wife or significant other. I think it's really important. And then with signs, every single retail sign should tell us what you're selling before you tell us the name of the store. Because I have no idea what that says. I don't know if it's a gallery, I don't know if it's an artist co-op, I don't know what it is. It's a great little shop, but when it's written, I don't know what it is. Russell and Company, I have no idea I could go up and look in the window to figure out what they sell. So for your merchants, always promote the lure that's going to pull us in. I'm not sure about you, but White Elephant, wasn't that always kind of like a joke Christmas gift? So I'm figuring out, I don't know what White Elephant is. And it's Monday, 6 to 8, and then Thursday through Saturday. So I couldn't figure out whether this is a consignment store, a secondhand store. I have no idea what it is. So with your merchants, always tell us what it is. What's that?
Sheriff's Community Treasure.
Community treasures?
It's like our Goodwill.
Oh, like a local Goodwill. Okay. But should be good. That would be good to say. So anyway, we weren't sure what it was. And once again, and by the way, I would always only allow temporary signs for what I put up there, 8 weeks or so while you're getting a permanent sign. Just because you have a beautiful downtown, we like to see it more permanent. I think that's a great sign, but I hope it's going to come down and there'll be a permanent sign there. So you don't have plastic banners around your downtown. This is me being picky, but you're a world-class destination. I just want you to look world-class, a little more. And I think most of you do a great job. Right here we have the one shop there, then there's another shop here. It looks like there used to be a sign there, but there's no sign there now. Then there's another shop around the corner, and there's no signs anywhere. Unless you go all the way around the corner, then you'll see Artist Cove Gallery. So then we got a sign, if I go back, that's like hanging above the door there. Or 2 doors, because I think that's a different shop than this shop. But we don't know what they are. So once again, make it easy for people. Now, Wildflower Cafe and Bakery. We saw this billboard downtown, or the A-board, sandwich board downtown, and right there tells you where it's at. Can you read it? I walked right up to it and I could barely read the writing of where this is located. But we saw open 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., French espresso, French pastry. Us and dozens of other people would walk up this alley. We look back here and turn around and go back. Because it doesn't continue everywhere. And we just, where is it? We still can't see it anywhere. But if we go back to this sign, in very, very faint lettering, it says it's between Subway and, what is it, well, hang on a second here, I got it coming right up. They say it's between Subway and Asian Palace. How would anybody know there's anything between those two? There's no signs whatsoever. And maybe it's a brand new business that's waiting for a sign. And in that case, then I'd put up a temporary sign, a banner, anything. Because even right here, you can't tell it's there. And I'm standing right in front of it. And by the way, yesterday we went and grabbed sandwiches there. It's fabulous. But even Jane, when she had grabbed the sandwiches, said, I think this is where the locals come. I said, because the visitors don't know it exists. So even a temporary sign up there, just until you get a permanent sign. It's a great spot. But it's just overshadowed by those other two. So here's another big initiative. I have two of them. I want you to make downtown a work of art. I would love to see murals like that on your buildings. Because I'm coming back to this, the gray, the brown, the beige, after a while, I mean, this building looked like it's stuck in 1974. And it's such a prominent building on the main corner in downtown. I thought, could we take, the river rock is fine, but could we take and add some color or some Native American murals or anything to dress this up? And I'm not just picking on them, because everywhere you go, you see all this. And you'll see the rain and the rust coming down off the buildings, and I'm glad we got the benches there, but I thought, man, this would be a great place for murals. You know, things like this would be great. I think if you can contract with other artisans, mural artists, I think it'd be fantastic. I mean, I love the pillars down here. And if we can do some of that art on the walls, on the outsides of buildings, even up here, you know, all of this gray, brown, and beige, you know, it's just make it look better. So I thought if you can make downtown a work of art would be fantastic, and especially here. You know, it's just, you know, just solid. I mean, if you had your downtown looking like a gallery, you'd have people there just for the architecture. And so I thought, if you could do some cool things, whether it's sea life, whether it's Native American, I mean, even your pole banners are beautiful. I thought, man, could we do some murals like these on the walls? Would be fantastic. You could turn lemons into lemonade with all kinds of Native American art, like wrapping the water tower, whatever tower that is right there. Even that, you know, whether it's like, you know, art like this, or whether it's murals of life in Sitka, just anything to help soften all these buildings, because it's really noticeable when the paint starts disappearing. To us as visitors, you guys probably don't even notice all this stuff. But we notice all this, and it's just like, man, does the hardware store only sell one color paint in this town? I mean, you know, we're making jokes like that, but it just is drab. And I just thought, if you could add murals, the grocery store does a great job. I think that's so cool. It's not even right in downtown. They're well, kind of in downtown, but not in the main visitor area. But I thought that is really cool. Love to see a lot. I love to see your whole downtown. But that brings me to something called trompe-l'oeil. Trompe-l'oeil is French for fool the eye. See that wall there? There is no arch there. That's a solid concrete block wall. That's been painted on there. It's in the works. So you can see he painted that arch in there, created shadows on it. This is our artist, Eric Grove. He does these kinds of trompe-l'oeil art murals. So there it is, before, during, that's it afterwards. I mean, these are the kinds of things you do. Now, it doesn't have to look like that. It could look like, you know, trompe-l'oeil is where you fool the eye, but you can do all kinds of things. Before, during, after. I mean, think about this. Y'all know the song, Standing on the Corner in Winslow, Arizona. It's such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look at me. It's the Eagles' first hit. Notice there's an eagle in the upstairs window. Notice there's a couple over to the right making out in the window. And notice you can see the reflection in the window of the flatbed Ford. Well, here it is. 1.5 million people a year will stop in Winslow, Arizona to get their picture taken on that corner. And you can see the reflection of the girl in the flatbed Ford. And there it is, right there. And you want to know something interesting about this, and there's Glenn Fry from the Eagles. He's standing over there. You can't believe how many people, 1.5 million people. Now, you want to know something interesting? That used to be a furniture store. It's now just a wall. That's the back. But so you can do Where's Waldo, you can do whatever you want. But I want to take 3 minutes. I want to show you a little film. This was at Phil's Farm Mercedes in Seattle where they did this on the wall. So I just want to show you this. And by the way, your art doesn't have to be like this. And so, I think we lost our music for this, but there's music in the background. But they started with this design, and And then they had this building right there at the dealership. They said, we have to dress this up. We have to make it look cool. And so you'll just see this going on right now. And normally there's music back there. But so they painted first. And by the way, you can see all the way around it, it's kind of concrete block. And so here he's going for it. And so this is a short version, it's like 3 minutes, so we're about a minute into. So he starts with the frames there, and I mean, it's pretty cool. I'll let you just watch it here. I won't say anything for a couple minutes. They get some rain too, that's why that's covered. But they wanted to turn lemons into lemonade, and once again, another gray or brown beige building. And so all of his art, you can walk right up to it and not know that it's a painting. It is that good. And that's Eric right there, does he? And by the way, this is concrete block. All those bricks were painted on. So it looked like a brick building. But now you can see it starting to really take shape as more three-dimensional. And by the way, if you did facade easement, where you give the city an easement to the facade of your building, there are grants to do this kind of art, and even murals. So this is it, underway. I mean, the detail that he does is pretty amazing. And there are other artists that do this too. And by the way, it doesn't have to be trompe l'oeil art. It can just be whatever art. I think, first of all, I think indigenous art would be my #1 choice for Sitka. But you can do some Russian art, some wildlife art. But even all the shadows, it sure looks three-dimensional, doesn't it? So. There is his wife and he travels all over the world to do these. But there's what the concept was. Look at that. I kept going, how many people walk up and go BAM into the wall? And it looks like you can drop. Look at this. Look at this. I think that is so incredible. Look at the detail. So in the theater, I don't know if you can pay me to go watch a movie in there. The judgment on the look, which isn't fair, but that's what that's what we do. And so it just looks, you see rust running down it, and I just think you have so many great places for murals and for art. Here it looks like they had some like totem pole art, but over the years it's just, it just looks bad. And so you're seeing it from our eyes. Here they did that art, but I kept going, man, if their buildings had color or murals on them, there's so much you could do to make downtown Sitka be its own gallery. Because all of these are like, man, just right out of the 70s. You can even do that size. I would love to see a really cool design right there in this intersection. And there's a way you can do this that's fairly inexpensive and it's not paint. And so it's all worn off, it's about ready. I think somebody's going to need to repaint the crosswalks. But you can put a Sitka design there, a Sitka logo, a Bolingo, whatever you wanted to put there. And these days there's a process called Duratherm or street print. See what you see there? It's all embossed down in the asphalt. And it's embossed down like ½ inch. You can do snow removal over it. And it's got a vinyl, it's not paint down in each of those. And so you could have whatever design you wanted on your crosswalks, on your intersection. I just think you could do something really cool. I would love to see Sitka, the whole town, be a gallery. I really believe that you are Alaska's best arts community. And I don't say that lightly, but what you have here is exceptional. And if you take really close look, you can see how that's embossed down in there with a vinyl coating. And by the way, they come up with the design and they have these machines that imprint it right into the asphalt. And it lasts like 20 years, and 10 minutes later you can drive on it. So we're not taking it up for days. They come in with all of this and then they imprint it right down there. I mean, how cool is that? Those are not paver stones. You can see, they just finished this side, now they're doing that side, people are already driving on it. But you have so many crosswalks that I think could be embossed with some street print, some whatever design you want. It could be a salmon run, it could be anything. Would be really cool. And then, while we're making downtown art gallery, I'd have your school kids paint these garbage cans. They probably have to do it once a year because when the equipment grabs them, I'm sure it would scratch them up a little bit. But these are all over downtown, like turn lemons into lemonade. I'm glad you have the trash cans that are pretty big and oversized, but I thought, man, even if these are painted with just school kids stuff, grade school art would be fun. And the same, you've probably been in many towns where these are either wrapped with vinyl or they're painted. I think it would just make downtown, I would love to see downtown Sitka be a gallery. So that was big initiative number one. Just, these are suggestions. This one here, I think you should remove the parallel width of your sidewalks. Your sidewalks aren't even near wide enough. And that's why, I think that's why you have to close off the streets. But if you could double the width of your sidewalks on Lincoln primarily, double the width of your sidewalks, get the parallel parking off the street, I think would be fantastic. Downtown needs to be about people, not cars. And we never saw where you were really short of parking. You know, and there was always a place to park. Even if we had to park down by Centennial, the Centennial building, I mean, it's an easy 5-minute walk to here. And I just thought, you wouldn't be losing that many parking places, maybe 20. But I just really believe that you can make this about people. And if you double the width of your sidewalks, you could have sidewalk dining out there. You could have more room for those displays, benches, pots, flowers, and best of all, people. So if I was downtown, I would just say, okay, I just want to remove the parallel parking off of this street right there. I would just do that and just make your downtown shine. You wouldn't have to close off your streets except during the very busy times when you have, you know, those huge cruise ships in and you have so many of them. Because this would accommodate you most of the time. Double the width of your sidewalks. Make downtown about people. It's worth walking a block or two forward, you know. And by the way, when we're out there, we even found where locals go. How many of you are surprised that we ever found that? We barely did. But that's like out, you have to have a car to get there basically. But it's just, you know, and so we went in there, their pizza, by the way, is excellent. Really good. And so that is how we ended our Tuesday. So now let's go to Wednesday. And Wednesday, we just did some fun things. We figured out, you know, we were here since Sunday. We cannot visit Sitka without getting on the water. So we had to figure out how are we going to get on the water, and we chose Bear Enough Tours. There's Jake did her picture with their signs in front of the Centennial Hall. And here's why we picked them. And this is so important to every other business here, whether it's retail, restaurants, or tours, is we go to TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is the #1 rated website for tourism in the world. But next to that are Google reviews. Google reviews and TripAdvisor reviews are the two most important review sites. Google reviews, Google started to even give TripAdvisor a run for their money. But we saw amazing whale watching and marine wildlife shore excursion, and they had this, it's $149. And you know what we do as visitors? We check the reviews, and we will check the negative reviews first. Isn't it odd that visitors do that? So they moved my all-family day to 1 star. And they said in there, they said that we were leaving at 12:15 and we got there at 12:14 and they were already gone. They left at 12:10. We never got our money back. They just ruined my whole trip. Tad, the owner, was brilliant. He said, we're so sorry to hear about your experience. Please note that as stated on your confirmation letter and your email, all guests are asked to check in 15 minutes prior to departure. This is to ensure we can go over safety information going seaward. On this day, even though you failed to check in early, the captain did wait until 12:15 in hopes that you would arrive. It was a very busy day, and as with most days, we needed to keep on a tight schedule. We attempted to call you, but the number you supplied us was incorrect. I can also assure you we did not sell your seats, and we currently do not charge $200 per person. Our rates are $145, which is what we pay. Please reach out to us directly so we can try to resolve this. The fact that he took the time to answer the question and try to resolve it, we said we're going with them. But you know what? We made sure we were there 15 minutes early. I mean, there are so many of your TripAdvisor reviews and Google reviews on your restaurants, your hotels, and your attractions where nobody ever responds to a negative review. You have to do this. We picked them because they care. That's why we picked them. And so we got there 15 minutes early. Everybody else gave 5-star reviews. We went out there and we saw, one reviewer said we saw so many whales after 2 hours. We were whaled out. I went, really? That's a first. And this is just on Wednesday. I mean, we saw humpbacks. You know how hard it is to photograph these guys? But he was so good, he could say, okay, they'll use me at the surface, and about the second time they do this, he knew when they're about to dive so he could get the flukes, in the photograph. And so, this is Tad and his wife, Missy. I called Missy the night before, said, can we get on at 9:15? He goes, I'm really sorry, it's all sold out. And I said, well, what about the 12:15? She goes, yeah, I do have a couple seats for that one. Do you want to book it now? I said, yeah, I'd rather do it with a person. This is like at 6 o'clock at night. And she goes, oh, I'd rather do it in person too, because you can't book it online. And she was so nice. And then she said, how to finance and tell us I have purple hair. I said, wow, in other cities you wouldn't be the only one, but in Sitka you're probably the only one with purple hair. It turns out there is another lady who also has. But they did a great job. Missy was there to greet us, to check us in, and there was only 4 of us. There was one other couple from Kansas City. And Ted did such a great job. We saw sea lions, we saw otters. He didn't skip on the time. He answered any question we could about fishing, but he did not even know why the fish jumped. Or about the net going across the entrance. He goes, I guess I need to go get those answers. I said, well, there was a lot of us with those questions. And so, just a great job. And so on Wednesday, we did that in the afternoon. We came and walked downtown again. We grabbed dinner. And then yesterday, just so you know, we spent the entire day putting this together. Because this is 100% about Sitka. There's no off the shelf there. Where do you go from here? You saw a lot of these 107 suggestions, but you know what? Don't let that overwhelm you, because really, I gave us put beautification front of this shop as one, put beautification front of this shop. You can do beautification, we'll probably take care of 30 of those. See what I mean? So it's not like, oh, there's 100 things we have to do. And by the way, there was nothing expensive in this other than mural art. Even wayfinding, you don't need that many signs in Sitka, maybe 10, to get us out, if we're in a car. And so none of this has to be expensive. But we'd like to create a destination Sitka team. That might include city manager, mayor, or council, or councils here. There are, where are you?
Assembly.
What's that? Yeah, so, and get, planning department, merchants. I don't know if you have a downtown association, chamber of commerce, visit Sitka, and create a team and go through these and figure out, well, which ones do we want to do? The whole reason we're here is to make something happen, not come and preach to you for a couple hours. I think what you have here is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you did none of this, Sitka is still an amazing destination worth coming to. This is just about you just going one step further. And by the way, nobody has ever done. Nobody. You can never rest on your laurels. We saw that just from COVID. So key suggestions. Make downtown about people, not cars. Remove parallel parking. Double the width of your sidewalks. You know, I even said there should do a one-way street, and I hate one-way streets. So I said, nah, I don't want to go there. But you could be Alaska's Archie told me, artisans in action, murals, galleries, performing arts, visual arts. You know, program public activity spaces, you know, like Totem Square, make a Totem Park Plaza. And by the way, even yesterday, while I was preparing this, Jane said, I want to go downtown. I don't hear that from her very often. And even yesterday, you had music downtown. She even filmed some of it. I thought it was awesome. The arts you have here is way more than skimpy. I mean, it's who you are as people, as indigenous people and as natives, you're all residents of the island. And I just think that these were excellent. I just think what you have is amazing. I'm so sorry that the last municipal league is meeting today, so we're missing a couple of your key players. And I keynoted these all over the country. I thought, man, if I would have known about that, I would say, hey, I'll come and let me do a speaking engagement and sell you on Sitka from the rest of the state. So that's great. I saw that sign's welcoming people. But what you have is amazing. Your downtown is amazing. You have great shops and great restaurants. And overwhelmingly, there was a couple shops that had a lot of kind of neat, shiny, cheesy souvenirs. Fine, they were still busy. But at least you had enough of the galleries and the fine art to make this really, your downtown is much a destination, or better, it's more of a destination than the Fortress and then the Raptor Center and all those things. I mean, it is so important. And I think you do an overwhelmingly good job. I never thought I'd see a company that sells salt look this incredible. I mean, that's amazing. That's world class. We are buying salt in there. Who would have even think? And the guy walked out and goes, oh my God, you got to get in there. I have barbecues, they have salsa. This is a cruise ship pastor was selling us on why we needed to go in there. It's like, this is awesome. You know, these are people from big cities. The Russian American, did you get that right? Russian American store, incredible. I mean, and I love the fact that it goes all the way through so you can enter on both sides of it. But even little places, I didn't show every picture in every shop, but we went in almost all of them. The Sitka Rose Gallery, I mean, the art in there is absolutely world class. I must say I was disappointed we could not find Hogwarts. But I love the sign. And that's right here in this little area, this campus. I mean, but everywhere we went, it was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And we really, really love our time in Sitka. We hate to leave. And so, you are already on your way. I think you do an amazing job. And that's what I got for you today. So. We have a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions? I don't mind the hard questions. Anybody have any questions, thoughts? Now, if there was things in here that you said, but Roger, did you see this, or see this, or this? There may be things we saw, but we missed because we didn't know. I mean, we went on TripAdvisor, we went through your visitor's guide, we went to the map, we looked at everything we could. And remember, we were here Sunday, we spent all day, Monday we spent all day, Tuesday we spent all day, Wednesday we spent all day. Jane spent a little bit of time yesterday, 4 days, and we still didn't get to hike trails. And we were never bored, we were never looking for things to do. We didn't hike to your other lakes. We didn't go along your shorelines. Everything, even when we walked along the historic trail, the Totem Trail, whatever we call that, we did it because, you know, we were doing an assessment. And you know, as a matter of fact, a lot of times we leave, we come here Friday, we do a presentation, then we're off, and we said we need to stay another day. I mean, that's how cool this place is. I think what you have is absolutely amazing. I wish I could say that in most places. And you've been a tourism destination for a long time. One other thing I want to mention is I think the mix of a real live fishery is incredibly important to us as visitors. So watching the tenders out there, I wish there were signs that talk about the tenders out there. Because we're watching, we see them going right down. You can see the weight line on the side of the ship. as they're offloading ship. But people are sitting there going, what are those boats doing docked to that boat? And how long is that boat going to stay there? And what does it do? And I'm sitting there trying to explain to them, and I don't know. You know, I know a little bit because I used to work on a 55-foot boat for the University of Washington on San Juan Island. I grew up on an island in Washington State. Yes.
So I'm on the science center board and have been for about 15 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that was good to hear because the whole spawning shed, the whole area of construction normally has more of an interpretive part to it.
Okay.
We also included in the aquarium portion of paying for that. So this is hugely valuable, which I'm going to take back to the group there because they do want, they will need that feedback.
If they did, she did say, when we got there, we paid the money, we came in, and she goes, if you want to wait around, somebody will come over and give you a tour of the, and it was like, well, there was no signs, there was no, if you want to wait around, when, how long do we have to wait, how long does the tour take, what are we going to see? That would have made it worth it. So if they would say, if you come on the hour, every hour, you know, because if we could get a tour of the fish, and I know, you know, and I don't know if the Science Center is associated with the hatchery next door or not.
Yes.
But you wouldn't know that.
No, you wouldn't know that the reason the gate was down was because they had to stop having fish complaints about fish costs recovery, which you would have gotten at.
Yeah.
But I think telling them just something easy fix.
Well, and even the gals, I think they're like high school, and I'm not trying to put anybody down, but we'd say, okay, yeah, we want to come in, and she'd kind of go like, oh, really? Like we're going to pay? I mean, they're surprised we're going to pay, because other people just walking right past her and in there. And I heard one guy talking to his wife saying, why we didn't pay. I mean, that's what you don't want people to do, because there's no signs that say, by the way, your admission includes a hatchery tour. So if the hatchery tour was 45 minutes, I mean, once we're in there, after 5 minutes, we've seen, oh, what are we going to do? We could go out and get chowder, but would they let us back in? Because they're not stamping hands, there's no wristbands. I mean, so you got to figure out a way to do it. Because if we could have done the hatchery tour, it would have absolutely been worth it, because that's where we could have answered all of our questions that we had. But we had, and by the way, I'd call it an aquarium. I would call it aquarium and hatchery. A science center, you would think would be about more things than just an aquarium. And so just call it that. I would just call it the Sitka Aquarium and Hatchery. And then that's what you're selling. Because Science Center, we expect to see things about the weather, we expect to see things about tides, we expect to see other things of science. And we didn't see any of that.
Well, it is that, but it's not something they show off. It's collaboration with scripts and with Hole and everything. So as long as you never know it, right?
We would never know it, and we didn't know it. And it really, this was the only thing that I had a negative review on, was that. And the reason is we had no clue what you just said. No clue. There's no signs, there's no anything. It's somebody taking your money and saying it's in that room. And we thought, well, there must be something upstairs that says offices. You know, so we thought, this is it, one room that could fit on this stage. And I'm going, holy smokes. And there's nobody there to guide you, or she just said, yeah, if you want to come, if you want to stick around, there's going to be a tour of the hatchery. And it's like, well, how long do we have to stick around? Can we go eat next door and then come back? Can we? And there was no answers. Yeah.
So it struck me as you were going through all your recommendations.
Suggestions.
Yeah, a disturbing number of them, or a fairly large number of them, are things we can't control. Because the state and federal and Park Service and state Park Service, like the parking at the visitor center at Totem Park, would probably literally take an act of Congress to happen.
Well,
And so, you know, or the nice crosswalks at the stoplights at the state road, they won't let us touch it.
so,
Same with the lights. And we can suggest, we can ask.
yeah. So I just had this conversation in Anchorage last week. They have 3 of their 3rd Street, 4th Street are state highways, or no, 4th Street and 5th Street in Anchorage. And I told them, take your streets back from the state. They'll give them to you. You'll have to maintain them. But in Anchorage, their worst streets are the ones that are state-owned. You need better crosswalks. The paint's wearing off of them. You need better decorations. And I always say you'd be better with local control. They don't be in charge of your own destiny, not let the state not let Juneau be in charge of your destiny. And in Anchorage, they're going to do that. I actually had somebody from the Department of Transportation there came up to me and said, if Anchorage wants to take these back, we'll give it to them. We'll still even help them with maintenance, but they're right. I just think, I don't know who owns what. Remember, that's why I say these are suggestions. We don't know who owns what or who controls what. But I know that, I've worked in 45 states, and I see communities everywhere. I'll get you to say. I see cities everywhere taking their streets back to the state so they have local control, so that they can be in charge of their own destiny. Yes, all of a sudden now you have to be in charge of snow removal or cleaning, but I saw merchants out there sweeping their sidewalks, even though they don't own the sidewalks. And I think so, and I don't know who owns what buildings. I mean, a lot of these are private buildings, like banks and stuff. We're asking to mineralize those. I'm kind of appalled that they wouldn't let you paint footprints out going to the Rapids Center. I'm sorry. I'm being really honest with you. I think that's ridiculous. And so, you know what? I've even worked with where I've even gone before states, and I go to the legislature and say, look, you got to loosen this up. I mean, this is your economy here. And so there are some of those you say we just can't do it, but I would say I want you to be in charge of your own future. And not always be relying on Juneau to let you decide what you can and can't do. Particularly with your own streets. You know your streets way better than somebody at the Department of Transportation. And I mean, if Lincoln is a state highway, why are they letting you close it off even? And by the way, there's 3 things that you need to, this is somewhere you can go to the Department of Transportation through the state. I go through the state tourism office, through commerce, if you have commerce. And I say all departments of transportation, so let me give them a shout out because I'm not trying to diss anybody. But departments of transportation have 2 main functions, public safety and moving traffic. Congestion is a downtown's very best friend. There needs to be a 3rd one, economic development. And we've turned many, many states, even California, turn them into where they had to turn on economic development. Will this help them economically if we do this or this or this? So it's just not those 2 things. So yes.
Yes, I have a couple of comments here. I was a park ranger for a long time. Teacher, and it required 3 of us to decide where the bathroom signed for 3 months. So I understand about signage. I'm not making fun. It's a serious deal. You're good at that. You have too many of them, but it's good. There's a couple of things I'd like to say. Downtown Sitka is depressing in the winter. We need double the lighting on the streets. My wife and I burn Amazon boxes if we see them. And we think more local shopping would happen in the so-called off-season.
Yes.
I wish we'd quit calling it the off-season.
And you should.
Okay.
I should write these down so I can keep track of them.
20 years ago, we had Castle Hill opened up to a giant archaeological dig. And a whole bunch of us seasonal rangers said, leave it open. And there was a department in the state of Alaska. I'm not getting into a war with them, and I don't want to hear the lecture, but we said, leave it open. This is a fabulous draw. And if Sitka could reopen that as an archaeological dig, 1/3, 1/4, 2/5 of it, 300,000 items were open. The point is that people want to see the dig.
Absolutely.
3rd thing. Teacher. Well, that's all right. It's all right. It's my turn to talk. Electric buses. I have followed the Stinkathon buses up and down the streets. And I love the fact that we have the tourists back. I'm not anti-cruise ship. I'm not anti-construction. I like the sound of construction trucks coming past my house. You all know where I live. Electric buses, especially the one that puts out the black smoke. And the last thing, and I've got about 40 others, volunteers in this town need to be recognized.
Yes.
Our Sitka Visitor Bureau needs to do this. I've mentioned it for decades. We have Park Service volunteers, church volunteers, Sheldon Jackson volunteers, Forest Service volunteers. volunteers. You need to have a meeting or a banquet or something where you recognize volunteers. It's an it's an integral part of this community's economy, and it needs to be recognized with dollars and with people's faces saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a big deal. I got one more, I'll stop. The churches, I don't know what you did, but you did your little blip on the church, one end it's pretty. That's not enough. I did a paper on the churches and their history on Lincoln Street when I was a park ranger. I don't know where that paper is now, it's probably gone, but Lincoln Street church history, just Presbyterian, or just Episcopal, or just a Catholic. And of course, I'm Lutheran, everybody knows that. But if you do that, not just a little list, here's church Sunday at 10:30, right, and included that with a 2-page spread on the churches in your pretty book, that would be great. Really nice.
Be very nice.
I got about 10 more, but I'll be quiet.
Okay, so I'm going to try to remember something. Number one, I think that every community should do an annual dinner to recognize volunteers. And I do that in towns of 500 people, and in towns of 10,000, you know, in big cities, always. Yes, I absolutely agree. You're a volunteer. You know what? Let me give you a couple things here. Number one, marketing will bring people to Sitka once. That's it. The only thing that ever brings people back is the product. Did it look good? Did I have plenty to do? And my experiences, were they great? And the people I interacted with. That's the only thing that brings them back. And that's where your volunteers make a huge part. So there's that. Electric buses. I would even go so far as to say even natural gas buses in a lot of bigger cities, the cost of electric buses right now is very expensive, but I absolutely hear where you're going with it. I think it would be fabulous. But we have seen people go with existing buses, replacing the diesel motors with natural gas. Because natural gas burns clean, it doesn't smell, it doesn't put out the black smoke. So that might be an interim for some of these. And we do see the buses all the time, and the natural gas ones, I mean, diesel buses are loud, number one, so you reduce the noise. I think electric buses would be fabulous. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I'm just trying to think of the cost of actually converting those. So some cities are doing a multi-stage where they're going from diesel to natural gas, and then down the road, electric buses are designed as electric buses. It's hard to convert, gas or diesel-powered buses to electric. So that's number two. And I can't remember, you talked about wayfinding and signage. And back, even we have worked with U.S. Foresters. Remember I said the Forester sign, could we put the trail guide in there? A lot of times, rather than go back to Congress, we've actually gone to U.S. Foresters, Rangers, to say, look, we have a Sitka trail guide. We would just like to put a little brochure holder. And I've never heard of somebody turning us down. Without saying, go to your Congress, go to Lisa, Murkowski, and tell her to go back there and get approval from, Buttigieg or whoever's in charge of transportation. But I think if you work with these people, we work with U.S. Foresters, who I think have a lot of land with. I don't know if you have BLM here. We found them easy to work with on the local level. We're not asking them to change anything, really. We just want to we'd like to add more information for visitors. And in exchange for that, we'll keep them stocked or we'll keep them taken care of. I can't remember the other, I think they all are valid points. Now remember, we were here for 4 days. We didn't go and say, Roger, you need to be aware that the federal government owns this and they're not going to let you do this. We came in here, that's why I call these suggestions. And you already do a great job. A couple of things. I would love to see you get more people coming to Sitka just for Sitka. And not saying, we're on the bus run, on a cruise ship to all of these. I have nothing against the cruise ships. I like seeing all the crowds in town. But as a person coming here for a week, I kind of waited like you do as locals for them to kind of dissipate before I went downtown. I think lighting downtown would be absolutely imperative. And you can do that by putting LED lights along the tops of the roofs of your buildings. It's a good way to light downtown. They're inexpensive. They're low voltage. I think there's some ways, but I do believe that there should be no off-season. Well, let me just put it this way. You have your primary season, May, June, July, August, September, am I right? You also have shoulder seasons. That would be April, and then later in September and October. And by the way, boomers who have the most spending power and are retired and have the most disposable income, their favorite months for travel are April, September, and October. That's your shoulder seasons. And then your off season might be December, January, February. But I gotta tell you, we went to Anchorage in January, and the coldest it got was 15, and you're more temperate than Anchorage. And that's why I like that saying about there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. Because we were there in January, it snowed, we didn't have rain, but it did snow. And some of the things we saw, like Earthquake Park in Anchorage, if you've ever been there, we thought was prettier in the winter than it was in the summer, and we didn't have to deal with mosquitoes. See what I mean? I think it's really important for you to promote those shoulder seasons and even your off season. This would be a fabulous place to come between Christmas and New Year's. You know, it might be wet, but man, if we can be in a hotel room that has a fireplace, even a fake fireplace, or is cozy, and even writers' conferences and small groups like that, like the Municipal League, they like going places in the shoulder seasons. That can help you fill that out. We loved your downtimes this week. Because we're walking to a merchant, we'd have them all to ourselves. So we actually looked for that. Now, we're not dissing the cruise industry. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like without them over the last couple of years. But I think that's right. I think your points are really good. I think all these points are really good. Yes?
I just want to adjust your quote. It's not that Sitka has bad weather, or there is no such thing as bad weather in Sitka. There are just poor clothing choices.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I know you know what? I grew up on San Juan Island, and it was in the banana belt of the Northwest. When we lived in the Seattle area, we fled Seattle 10 years ago, moved to Arizona. And because we saw what was happening in Seattle. And they get 35 inches of rain. You know, Seattle gets 50 days of sunshine a year. I know you get, 100 inches of rain and stuff, but you know, I think your quote is perfect. Yeah, I think it's perfect. I mean, even walking through that trail when it was raining was almost as spiritual as walking through it when it was sunny and the sun's filtering through the trees. It's almost like the Olympic rainforest. And I don't think there's a bad season to see Sitka. And I think you promoting the shoulder seasons for flying visitors, I think you can even get Alaska Airlines on board because they would like to put more people on those planes to Sitka. And I think that would be fabulous. What you have here, there's no reason why somebody shouldn't come here, rain or shine. I mean, there's no question we like it when it's, 65 degrees out and sunny. I mean, granted, we loved it because you've been half the temperature of Phoenix. This time of year, it's 120, we're like at 60 and we're in heaven. But this is an amazing place. It's just flat out amazing. Just look, you know what really, I'll do this last one. You know what really blows me away is you are in the middle of a mountain range on the ocean. I mean, even in the San Juans, we could go up 1,100 feet. But look at what you got. I mean, we're luckily at the Aspen Suites, they put us in the corner room. So we can see the tenders out there, the mountains out there. I mean, what you have is the best of both worlds. And I think that is just incredible. And by the way, if we're here for a week, we can still come back for a week and do short tours. We heard there's hot springs around the island, but Sitka would always be our home base. I mean, there were so many things we could do, and I don't think your cruise ship passengers have no clue other than, Raptor Center and the things that they do. And they predetermine those before they even get off the ship. And so I just think if they had guides in their hand, if they knew what all you had to offer beyond those things, wow, I think they'd be blown away, and I'd love to sit and say, we got to go back and make a special trip to Sitka. So, yes?
What would be your thoughts on having like 4 electric people mover trolleys that just went up and down Lincoln Street from the Dodo Park to the other Lincoln Street
Fantastic. These, what he's talking about, these are rubber tire trolleys. So we're not talking about putting down traps. They're rubber tire trolleys, they make them electric, and there are guys around the country that take the old trolleys, steel wheel trolleys, and they convert them to electric or natural gas, and and it's part of the experience, and they just hop on, and then the person on board, I mean, we did a trolley tour.
It'd be free, there's no charge.
Yeah, no, it'd be free. And by the way, in some of these towns, they pay for those trolleys. Number one, they use school bus drivers, so they're licensed to drive passenger vehicles. They use school bus drivers to do it. And a lot of times they'll even put a little tip container on it, so if you want to tip the driver, you can, but there's no charge. And I think running them, I mean, for us, we're staying at Aspen, if you're staying down here at the Totem, I mean, that's all so easy to walk, not many hills or anything. But I think if
They
you...
have like an hour after they've done their excursions, so
Yeah,
it would not-
absolutely. It lets them go to the other little places that are not. Like, I wonder how many of them that are on a tour bus even get to the historic park where the totems are. You know, they might not see that over there, or even the museum and the aquarium. Oh, I see, I already renamed it.
They pull everything and hop off.
Yeah, absolutely. Hop on, hop off. And the trick is with those, every 15 to 20 minutes. If people have to wait longer than 15 or 20 minutes, they'll skip it or they'll find a different way to do it. So as long as you do it, but absolutely I think it'd be fabulous. The best, I mean, you know, Leavenworth is starting to do that now, and Santa Barbara, I mean, you can name places all in the country. Gatlinburg, Tennessee, next to the Great Smoky Mountains, Springdale, Utah, next to Zion, all these places do these little trolleys, and they're part of the experience. And I think having a couple of those would be fantastic. Yeah, and it lets people move around in town. Otherwise, you're gonna be on Lincoln Street, they don't know anything a block away. You know, and I think that's good for the merchants on Lincoln Street. But you got merchants that are not on Lincoln Street that are actually really phenomenal. You know, I mean, getting over to this part of town, I wonder how many, I didn't see any tour buses over here. And yet you've got the hatchery there, you've got the sea walk there, you've got the museum there, you have this campus here. This is one of the best parts of downtown. And they're over there, and they don't even though it's a 5-minute walk to them, they don't have a clue. Yeah. So that's a great idea.
By the way, the fish jump because they're losing their eggs.
By the way, what's that?
That's a theory. The theory is the fish are trying to loosen up the egg sacs.
Oh, okay, I heard that. One guy said, I think that's what they're trying to do.
That's what we-
But I wasn't sure. And then there's some kids down there catching and releasing them.
Yep.
And then somebody says, oh yeah, well, the reason they're releasing them is because those are the females, they can only keep the males, which I knew wasn't true, but they just don't know, so people are making up stuff. So I didn't say anything, they say, well, actually, that's not really true. Number one, can you tell the difference? You know, and number two, that's not really true. I think the reason they're probably releasing them is because maybe they're chums, and chums aren't seen as, I don't know, you know. But that's why I'd like to be more signage down there about that. Your fishery, for in people like, you know, I would love to come back here and do a fishing trip. And the people that do fishing trips, I mean, even talking to Tad on that boat, he says, the reason I don't do fishing trips is because I have to do all the work. All they want to do is reel them in. You know, but learning about your fishery, I think, is so important when there were no signs or information for us to learn about that. You did have some along the seawalk. I think there's some that talked about the different kinds of fishing craft, purseaners and those. Talked about, but we didn't really get to see how the whole cycle, we saw how the cycle of a fish works, but not how the fishery works. Are there catch lines? What are they catching? And by the way, right there in front of the hatchery, I expected it to be like everywhere else I've been, that there'd be tons of seals and sea lions there, and there weren't. I didn't see any. And yet there's fish everywhere, and I didn't know why. And maybe it's because the city does a good job keeping them away, or maybe they're saying, no, the catch is so good out there, they stay out there on those islands. We don't know. There were just questions we had. Versus going to Westport, Washington, and Monterey, California, where seals are on every dock, stinking up the place. So there was lots of questions like that, but there was really no information about the actual fishery, the hatchery process, and everything. So, love to see that. And with that, thank you so much for spending the morning here. Thank you very, very much. Love it.
saying thank you to the City and Borough of Sitka for funding this presentation. It's one of the things that we had added into our contract when we renewed our contract with the city, because we felt like getting this outside type of perspective would be, especially this summer, really informative and really important. So I want to thank the city for supporting this project, and that money did come out of the Visitor Enhancement Fund, which is the bed tax fund that supports our program. So,
And a couple things, just so you know, 2022 and 2023, you're probably going to see some over-tourism because there's been a huge pent-up demand. So people that were shut are going to see this huge wave, and then it'll settle down. So when people say, we had 2 years of rest and relaxation, now we're being overrun, it will start to get back down to normal, just so you know. And by the way, I got to tell you that when Natalie from our office called and said, I just talked to Lori in Sitka. She wants you to do an assessment there. I said, do it! Because you've been on our bucket list. It's not very often. To us, this whole week has been and honestly, we've done thousands, more than 2,000. This one here was a real treat. It was really an honor for you to have us come in and give you some ideas on how you can make it even better when it's already fantastic.